got Samuel Arms back in again. Huge budget with the crypto with Governor DeSantis. Thank you for coming back in, man.
Absolutely. Always excited to be here, Tommy.
And big shout out to Chris Matos.
Kermitz.
I tried, Chris. I tried.
Chris Kermitzos. I know.
Great guy.
It took me a while to get it, too.
No, it didn't.
Nah, that's right.
You got it.
I got it right away. But, you know, it's a unique Greek name, so it's okay.
Did you see that that volcano erupted in Hawaii today?
No.
First volcano that started to erupt since '84.
Oh.
Yeah. What actually is a volcano? Do you even know?
Yeah, it's when it's just a hot spot of magma from the Earth's core that hits a soft spot.
And then what makes it erupt where like the lava's shooting out of it and all that other stuff?
So we live on a giant steam pot, essentially. So the Earth's core is always trying to like create new magma because our plates, this is not what everybody was asking for, right? But we have plates that converge Earth that go into the core. That's how, like in California, the San Andreas Fault is literally a piece of land that is going under the Earth into our core. And that's why California has earthquakes. So then that pressure builds on this end, and then on some other end, well, that's got to have an exit. So then that magma plumes, finds a weak spot, and that's why like the Hawaii Islands are even a thing.
Oh, so like if it's in California, it starts, blows up, whatever, but it has to go somewhere. So like the exhaust would be Hawaii.
Correct. I mean, and that's not exactly the term, but the whole Earth is that, right? Like, if you look at from Hawaii to all of America's Pacific coast, it's called the Pacific Ring of Fire. And those are all tectonic plates where magma comes up. Which is funny, totally unrelated, but not really, is I was being a nerd in researching Justinian's empire, who's like the last Roman emperor. And you had what's called Justinian's plague. But the plague was caused because there was a lot of famine. And the famine happened because somewhere way across the world, a volcano erupted, and it put so much ash in the air that it blotted out the sun for like an entire 2 years.
Almost like a mini ice age.
Correct. Well, it caused a mini ice age.
Wow.
And none of the food could grow. So the first Black Plague came during Justinian's reign in Rome. It was called Justinian's Plague, and then it came back, 300-400 years later.
So then what makes it erupt is just too much,
just
to
pressure.
push out, and then the lava comes out, goes everywhere, and then what happens?
It solidifies like you're making new Earth.
Oh,
like
wow.
That's it. So that's why if you look at Hawaii's islands, because the plates move, like the point of the lava stays here, but the plates above it move. So that's why Hawaii is a chain of islands, because the plate's moving, but the lava just keeps coming up in the same spot.
And when you say plate, what do you mean plate?
Tectonic plates.
And what is that?
Tectonic plates are, so there's like, let's just say 10 or 12. My earth science teacher from high school is going to see this and kill me. But tectonic plates are literally just floating islands of Earth around the Earth's core that are either colliding or going above and below each other.
Oh, wow.
It's supposedly, if you look at Mars, like they say tectonic plates are one of the reasons we have water. And it looks like Mars used to have tectonic plate activity. And that's when there used to be potential life on Mars, right, is what Elon Musk would say. So the goal is you nuke Mars, you bring atmosphere to it, and hopefully one day, if life's able to get on there, maybe tectonic plates start moving again or something like that, right? But it's interesting.
Because you would have to nuke Mars to get that going again, right?
You would nuke Mars with the hope of either creating an atmosphere, and then the atmosphere would create inhabitable life. I don't know if that would make the tectonic plates active, but it's weird. Earth science like that is like crazy.
So then do you think that these tectonic plates and the movement of all these little islands moving around are the result of, 7, 8, 9, how many is Graham? Like 11 ice ages that we know of now? Do you think that's what these things floating around are from?
That's a good question. I don't know. Because I'm actually I'm a creationist. I believe God created the earth, but I also am not tied to like the 6,000 years. So it could have been however long. So I think tectonic plates have technically been around for however long Earth's been around. All I know is that apparently if you don't have tectonic plates, you can't have sustainable life.
I think that's enough.
Right? Like,
I think that's pretty important.
Which is weird because you're like, what? But that's how you have volcanoes under the ocean and stuff. Like, there's more volcanoes under the ocean than there are above the ocean.
That we don't even study or look into, and it's only our fucking history.
So you didn't know about tectonic plates?
No, I mean, I knew what volcanoes were, but never what a tectonic plate was. No, I've been going down this whole pyramid path.
You know Pangea?
Yeah, kind of.
That's because of tectonic plates. So the Earth, all the continents used to be one, and you've seen GIFs where it expands. That's the tectonic plate movement. So now the tectonic plates moved apart, but now they're actually moving together. So the Atlantic Ocean is shrinking, and the Pacific Ocean is growing, and so we're eventually all gonna collide again, however many freaking million years from now.
Which has happened a gazillion times.
Exactly.
Anyway. And I want to get your opinion because you're not into this particularly, but what do you think it is? We tried to come up with a reason why with all these shootings. Like the other day, Walmart. I'll pull up tab 2. A shooting at Walmart. They don't even know who the guy is. What do you think's causing all this to start? Why are we seeing so many more now than before, and all that?
So one of my favorite things about my gym is the sauna, and the sauna is interesting because you have a men's sauna and a women's sauna. And for some reason, all the guys in the sauna, it's like instant, okay, what deep topic are we talking about today in the sauna? I think it's because it's so miserable in there. Mm-hmm. If you talk about anything, it makes the time go by. So last week, someone was talking about guns and gun laws and stuff. I was like, oh boy, well, 15 minutes is going to go by quick today in the sauna. And it's kind of a hard issue to grasp. But I ask basic questions like, okay, we've always had gun ownership. We've always had easy access to guns throughout our entire history. So, but shootings in public schools specifically, which is always a big topic, are just now a recent thing. And by recent thing, you could even say like the 70s onward. Even if you have a freaking musket, right? Like you could shoot one person in a school, right? Like, or in the 1920s, you still had a Thompson. Like the Chicago Mafia had Thompson guns, right? And those, you could kill a lot of people. No one was shooting up schools. No one was shooting up schools. No one was shooting up freaking Walmarts. You had your target. There was still like a respectful crime, whatever that means. So they contained it. So the question is it the guns and access to guns? I never think so. I think part of it could be a cultural shift, but that's like such a huge... Okay, so what shifted in the culture? You know, some people will blame video games or rap. That's like the top tier, like kind of ignorant mindset that you'll hear a politician like, oh, they're playing Call of Duty, so that's training them to go and shoot up a school. If you look at like gamer rates among high schoolers, I mean, all of them are correct. Yeah. And so then you would argue, okay, well, we should actually see more school shootings compared to the amount that play Call of Duty. So it is interesting. I think the concept would be what's called not a social construct, but social cohesion. We're seeing social cohesion break down, and you can see that in mental health. You can see that in crime rates in general, right? But if you see crime rates in general, you're going to have spillover effects. Spillover effects are going to be in places where you're like, why would you shoot up a Walmart? You know, why would you shoot? Shooting hasn't happened in Publix yet, I don't think, but that's when you know
that's when you know something's going on.
I know, or like a Wegmans or whatever the nice grocery stores on the West Coast are.
Or Whole Foods.
Correct. Like Walmart is shooting. I mean, I walk around Walmart occasionally. I'm like,
interesting.
I know I might die. Right? Like I go in there kind of prepared for death, but Publix, I'm like, no, I feel safe in here.
And then you walk out of Publix, broke as a drug dealer.
That's what you're paying for. That's what you're paying for, safety, right?
To stay alive.
That's a business model, I guess. Don't get shot while you're making food.
But it's easy to look at this, happening more and more, and you say, well, is there something more behind it to get rid of the guns? You know what I mean? A Walmart manager pulled out a handgun before a routine employee meeting and began firing wildly around the break room of Virginia's store, killing 6 people in the nation's second high-profile mass shooting in 4 days. The hell?
I read an interesting Twitter thread that was about terrorism, and they were specifically looking at terrorism or mass shootings in America by Muslims, so Islamic terrorism. And they were like, why did all that stop in 2016? And if you think about it, we haven't had any like what they would call radical Islamic terrorist incidences in the U.S., right? Where you have some high profile Muslim shooting a bunch of people. So what changed in 2016? We still haven't had any today, knock on wood, right? And that kind of weird, because do you remember in 2012 and like in that time period? And it's not like terrorist organizations. It's not like ISIS was doing it. We had Al-Qaeda before. I mean, so there is kind of a, is it random? Is it planned and they get something out of it? There are documented cases of federal informants talking to troubled high schoolers on Discord and essentially being like, here's where you can get a gun, right? And some of them, what's really screwed up, and it's been proven, they'll talk to kids with disabilities, right, who like have autism or have some kind of social disability, and they just get them on a forum.
Yeah.
And that's sick. Like, it's pretty sick. So what the motive is behind that, and I guess that's entrapment, right, would be the right word.
Also COVID, spill over from COVID. You know, everybody locked down for, say, a year or longer, depending on where you are. Now you get out. You know, so the way I kind of look at it is, well, you know, who knows because of all the shenanigans that are played. Yeah. But also, you know, that 12 months that people were locked down, those same murderers, shooters, killers, people that were going to do stuff like this, they didn't change. They just couldn't leave for a year. So now the spillover would happen now, whereas this would have happened maybe in 2019 or 2020. It's just happening now instead of then because we were locked down. This episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked. Are you the man your father was? Recent studies have shown that men's testosterone levels have dropped substantially since the 1980s at about an average of 1% per year. Think about how old your father was when he was born. For example, if he was 30, your testosterone levels could be 30% lower than his. Low testosterone levels can have all types of health effects on men. It can affect your mood, sex drive, memory, muscle mass loss, you name it. And yes, low testosterone is more common the older you get, but it can affect men at any age. So let's talk about today's sponsor, Let's Get Checked. You can order a testing kit that will be delivered to you in a discreet packaging with next-day delivery. Once your sample arrives in the laboratory, confidential results will be available from your secure online account within 2 to 5 days. So, if you want to test your hormone levels without having to leave your home, visit trylgc.com/MSCS Media and get 25% off your test using the code MSCS Media. The link is in the description at the top. This episode is sponsored by WestonJohnBoucher.com. Even after a decade of exposure to the fashion industry while fully immersed in the modeling world, model and future designer Weston John Boucher still hadn't found clothing that checked every box when it came to look, feel, quality, durability, and price. His solution was to create a menswear brand that would bridge the gap between designer-level pieces and reasonable price points without sacrificing quality. Weston's aim was to provide men who prioritize their health with effortless sophistication and style through simplicity of flattering fits, handsome designs, and amazingly comfortable materials. It's time to elevate your style. Experience obtainable luxury by Weston John Boucher at WestonJohnBoucher.com. Use the code Tommy to save 25% off your first purchase, their largest discount ever. I'll tell you right now, it would give Imperial Armani, Giorgio Armani, Page a run for its money. So go to Weston, WestonJohnBoucher.com. Use the code Tommy, Tommy, and save 25% off. Link is in the description below.
I think there's something to that. I think COVID also accelerated like social breakdown, which is essentially exactly what you're saying. I think, I mean, man, like you have people who on both sides really bought into. I still know people who, funny enough, I know people who are huge Trump supporters and still won't leave their house.
Really?
Yeah. I know people who love Biden. They won't leave their house either. I'm like, what broke in you? So, and that was probably at least 5% of the population.
But think about it. If you're on that social media all the time, if you're Googling all the time, and all you see is shot, stick, COVID, like we said the other day, if I say this is brown, if I say it enough times, you're going to say, okay, I guess it's brown. I guess it's not silver or stainless steel, it's brown.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened with the people like Howard Stern, who still won't leave their house and all that other shit.
Really? He won't leave his house?
Fuck. I mean, he was a germaphobic way before this. And now this, the guy's been locked in for what does he care? He got fucking $2 billion from Sirius. He just got signed again.
The question is do these circumstances and environments shape who you are or just emphasize who you are? Right? So were these people just weird or crazy or like that beforehand, and then this just emphasizes that? And maybe that's still bad. Okay, so maybe you hate people a lot, but you're not going to shoot them, and then you're locked down, and now you're going to shoot them. So that's not good, right? But probably if you have the mentality of some kind of school shooter, for example, I don't know if COVID is going to affect that mentality, right? There's obviously something.
Right. So what I meant was they were going to do it either way. It's just it got delayed.
Yeah, true, yeah.
So I think it's a combination of everything. I think there's probably a couple that are setups to make guns look bad. I think a lot of it is a COVID spillover. I think that's the majority. I mean, you're talking about killing people, not that that's out of the ordinary anymore.
But don't you think you've always had crazy people, even since the beginning of time? I mean, everything's documented now, right? We see it. It's on the news. There weren't as many people back then as there are now, but back then, I'm sure there were crazy people that just like to kill people. I think there's always been.
Well,
it's a human. Like there's some people that are just crazy, and I think
it's just a spillover from the COVID.
Mental health, I mean, is a huge issue,
and we don't do anything.
And we don't do anything about it. We turn the other cheek, but I don't know.
I was reading during COVID funny a guy named Ernst Junger, and he wrote a book. He was this World War I veteran on the German side. And he was interesting because his whole perspective essentially is like, war is awful and that's why I love it type deal. Not like, oh, we should go to war, but war embodies certain things that society actually needs. Just an interesting perspective. But his book on pain was literally about pain. And it talked about, from a philosophical perspective, how when you have societies that are comfortable, pain becomes exponential. So you choose a society, certain types of pain that you decide to just siphon out, like car accidents, right? So we've determined that when people die in car accidents, we don't care, right? Because we all like driving cars, so that's fine. That never makes the news, if anything. There was a car accident on my way here, right? I'm just like, time for a detour, and not even thinking about who died, right? But then you have certain things that if it's unexpected pain, then society loses its mind, which was really interesting given COVID, because now people have this unknown fear. Even whatever the percentage is, it's just something that is not controlled. Car accidents are controlled. It's built in our psyche that, okay, car, some people die. Whatever. I want to still be able to drive to McDonald's. Unknown virus, I was not prepared for that. That is not within our realm. And so that pain that we traditionally would feel if we were in a society that was less comfortable now becomes exponential when there's an unknown factor, right? And so I think that happened to the ultimate degree, right? It kind of a good time to read that book. Not even the reason why I read it, right? I was just curious. This writer is an interesting writer. His other book was called A Storm of Steel, which is like literally his diary during, I think it was World War I, which was obviously awful, but every chapter's like, hey, I met this guy, here's his family, here's his kids, and he dies, right?
I just finished this book. It's called The War of Art. I believe it's called The War of Art. Paul, I'm going to kill his name, which is not good.
Don't try to pronounce it.
I won't. It might be Stephen. I won't try to pronounce it. But anyway, in the book, he talks about retention. So the way he describes it kind of is what you said is, so we've lost our instinct because we no longer need instinct anymore. We have all this technology, this, that, the other. And what he was saying was there are still some people that kept their instinct. And within that, the people that lost their instinct got desensitized, right? So they don't see things that others do. So like for an example, like your dog, right? when your dog barks and you're like, shut up. Your dog sees things that you can't because it never got desensitized. It never lost its instinct. So I think a lot of this shit is that people want to be told what to do rather than think, use instinct, and react based on instinct. Now you go to the doctor. Now you put on the news. You want to be told, can I go outside today? What do I take? Not, hey, doc, I don't feel good. What do you think? Go research it and think for yourself. We're at that state where we want to be told what to do. So then in the book, it's a fight always between ego and retention. So say you sit down to write a paper, right, for whatever you got to do. And everybody's looking at you like, why is he so quiet? Why does he just sit at that desk for 8 hours straight? That's you fighting off the retention of people trying to get you out of your way, like when you go down to write. You know what I mean? So the whole book's about that. It's really interesting. I'm probably mangling how to describe it, but
no. So I think about that all the time. Are you familiar with the middle IQ trap?
Yeah.
So you've seen the meme where someone's like, low IQ, I love gummy bears, and then the middle IQ is like, gummy bears suck, they're bad for you, and then the high IQ genius is like, actually, gummy bears are awesome, right? But I think that's because the low IQ person, whatever that means, doesn't have the intelligence to where their gut, their instinct controls their life, which can be great in one sense, but that's when people act impulsively. But your gut is like this evolutionary genetic history of, hey, maybe you shouldn't eat that, right? Maybe this person's giving you a weird vibe because you have a whole human lineage of people who give you this vibe who try to kill you. So you get just enough IQ to where you're like, oh, let me ignore that. That's all BS. And those are the people who are the followers. Mm-hmm. And then the high IQ is like, oh, well, I'm aware of my instinct and that it's smart, but then I also have the ability to not just follow it blindly, right? I think about that all the time. I think I'm on the low IQ thing. I think I'm just a pure gut instinct. I'm like, which maybe that's a humble brag that I'm not middle IQ, so I just tell people I'm like 80 or 90 or something. I'm like, yeah, I'm in it.
Yeah. I talked about this with David Icke, who's another just blow your mind, and about that book and the retention and the ego and all that shit. And the best example he gave to describe it was, I don't know if you were ever with a girl or just somebody. For me, it was a girl. So I was with a girl for a long time, and whenever we would go somewhere, she would just know. She'd be like, don't talk to him. It's not good. Or I'd be like, look, we got to go here tonight. She goes, Tommy, I got a bad feeling, not tonight. And every fucking time, maybe it didn't happen that night, but that guy somehow did something stupid, or we went to the place and it ended up being a shit show. Mm-hmm. They had aura.
Yeah.
She had aura that I didn't have, that other people didn't have. When we would go somewhere, it was like she just had that feeling and would listen to it. You ever been around somebody like that that's like, hey, Sam, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And you're like, shut up. You worry too much. But really, they're following their instinct. They just don't know it subconsciously. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what the whole book is, but said right, and not like a peanut brain like me over here that's probably 2.
That means you're hella smart.
Oh, yeah. I'm on the low IQ end. That's good.
I don't know what to do because I think about that all the time. And I even, in some of my business stuff that I'm doing, I'll have people who just tell me, I don't have a good feeling about this. And I have to think, okay, let me take their instinct seriously, but I still have to isolate that individual person and be like, okay, well, given their background, what is setting them off? And that's where it gets hard, where it's like, okay, what is the individual's background with whatever they're sensing instinctively? Because I've been wrong about my instincts before. I've judged people and then I'm like, oh, actually he is a cool guy. But then normally I haven't maintained a relationship with him to where it could bite me in the ass. So, for what it's worth, maybe that's not the best anecdote. But I do kind of believe judging a book by its cover, right? Which is, don't judge a book by its cover. But I'm like, no, like the cover tells you a lot, right? If it's a shitty cover, if it's worn out, right, whatever, or if it's too pristine and clean looking, right? Like there's definitely some science to trusting a book by its cover. But, sometimes you can be proven wrong. I still haven't figured it out.
So with the book by the cover thing, I think you make it a judgment by it, but then you research it to verify your judgment. whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Because how many times have we been around people with sandals and a ripped shirt on, and you're like, Jesus, this guy needs a shower. Next thing you know, the guy's a billionaire, many times, right? So, and if you judge by the cover, that's a billionaire that you could have just maybe got a free dinner from.
Well, that's the thing with all these high-tech CEOs. But what's funny is, like the Zuckerbergs, the Gates, even Buffett, who drives an old beat-up car, they're told to do that by a marketing firm. Even the FTX guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, looked like a slob on stage next to everybody. And you think, wow, is that like when you reach the ultimate tier of money, you can just dress how you want? But no, sometimes it turns out it's like, oh, he's a scumbag.
He's a scumbag, and it's a marketing play.
Yeah.
Because now if Warren Buffett shows up in a Camry, you don't look at Warren Buffett as the 20 gazillion billionaire. You look at Warren Buffett as, well, I have a nicer car than him. Shit, I'll talk to him. But really, he's just coming to snake you. What's the new word nowadays? Gaslight you.
Gaslight you. Yeah. Don't gaslight me.
People start saying, what the fuck is gaslight?
Gaslight.
I mean, I know now, but
true.
But like 3 months ago, I started hearing. I'm like, what is this? Is this
just added it to the
what's the thing? Is this
now the new one's psyop, right? You're familiar with psyop?
No, is that
psyop means psychological operation.
What the hell?
Like what the CIA and all those people do, like MK Ultra or whatever. Like it's called a psyop. So
what was the word before that? What was it like? Cy Browns, and now it can
mind fuck.
Going back in history.
Now, did you see that? I know you probably saw. I know you saw. Apple is talking about taking Twitter off of the App Store. That would be insane. They do that.
I remember that being called for.
Really? They were talking about it all this morning.
That's interesting how that's gained momentum, and then the next would be Google. It's interesting how controlling media now is like the billionaire play. Because Amazon, Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and he went hard against Elon and Twitter, not only because of his own space company, what's it called, Blue Origin. So he hates Elon for that. But now it's like Elon's got the most popular media tool, right? Like, just by far. Like Twitter is where you might go to read an excerpt of the Washington Post, or you read what the reporter from the Washington Post
Why is Twitter so popular?
I don't know. I think it's the scrolling. It's just fun. Yeah. It's super creative. I mean, I think they nailed it originally with just the simplicity in the characters. So you have those threads that keep you hooked. I mean, Facebook's just a bunch of boomers, right? If not worse. Twitter's interesting because it's a direct connector to some of the more underworlds of the internet. So between Twitter, Reddit, and 4chan, like a lot of original content's created.
Well, if Apple takes that off, then you know Google's going to take it off. And now what happens is no matter who buys what or who has what, they control everything. So then either people go all the way away from it, which they won't, I don't think, no. Or an app comes along that's not censored, boom, out of the App Store, out of the thing.
I don't think they will. I think it's too blatant, and like they're fine deplatforming individuals like a Kanye or an Alex Jones. That's kind of easy because everyone can go along with one person because, hey, it's not me. I don't think they'll do it to Twitter. They'll find other ways around it. They'll either make some kind of weird policy that says if Twitter wants to be on an app store, they actually have to follow this list of demands, and maybe they'll cave. I remember on Telegram, I was in some group chats on Telegram, and if it was on my phone, if it was on my iPhone, I couldn't see it anymore. But if I was on my computer, I could see it. So Apple was able to figure out and search through Telegram what chats you could see and what chats you couldn't.
But Apple's supposedly not. They're supposed to be so fucking secure, right?
Correct.
Would you allow to track? Yeah, I don't want them to track, but you're going to track me.
Correct.
You dirty motherfuckers.
So there's so many ways to care. Like, that's just too obvious to ban it. I don't.
Do they give a shit?
Well, and so that will be what will be interesting is if they don't give a shit, then they know they don't have to hide anything anymore, and they'll just jump the gun on other things too.
So maybe they're testing it out by throwing it out there in the news. Shit test to see how people react.
Still, and if Twitter's not the most popular. No one's using Facebook. Facebook's dying. The only competitor It's not Instagram. It's TikTok.
Yeah.
And TikTok's owned by China. So you literally have Twitter, TikTok.
And Reddit. Reddit's the biggest of them all.
Correct. Reddit's huge.
No one's bigger than Reddit.
But even Reddit, the problem with Reddit is it's not scrollable, right?
Yeah. So with Reddit's the biggest platform in the world, and if you point it, you get the most gain. But like you said, it's been around forever. There's no robots on there because you need karma to be in population. You're in solitary confinement until they say you're not a robot, which makes it awesome because there's no robots. You can't cheat on there, So you have Reddit, but like you said, it's not that easy scroll thing like Facebook is or Instagram or especially Twitter. So you're right. You would have left fucking Reddit, which you would actually have to look and do more than just go like
Reddit,
this.
they still ban pages too.
Yeah. So then you would have Twitter. Or no, what would you have?
You'd have Facebook, Instagram,
TikTok. Everybody would just go to TikTok, and that would really be bad.
You saw the thing with China, with the whole COVID going on again over there now, and they're shutting down, and people are actually protesting, I guess, in China, which I don't know if I'd do that over there. They'll kill you.
Well, Apple's fucked.
But Apple,
they closed that whole
closing
thing.
it down. Now the phones, it's
a shit show over there, boy.
The China stuff's interesting because I've heard that a lot of the protests they may say are related to COVID, but some of them and some of the lockdowns have been in parts of China where there are large political factions that do not get along with the CCP. So it's all displayed as COVID lockdowns, but it's actually purely political. And of course, it's even surprising and weird that you're even seeing the protests. So I'm sure all that will go quiet here soon enough, and for all I know there'll continue to be protests, but you won't even know
about it.
Yeah, that makes I'm sure it's political. It's just another diversion to pile on top of the pile on top of the pile. Pull up that Twitter from about Kanye. He was down here for Thanksgiving.
Kanye was?
Yeah, he said
Mar-a-Lago.
He said it was over at Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, that thing.
My wife is out here fucking a white boy with a 10-inch penis, and you won't help me. My wife is out here fucking. What's he just said over and over? And you telling me that's your friend, but you're supposed to be culture?
Wait, so he said that to Trump at the dinner that they went to?
I guess. Seems like it.
Could you imagine being Pete Davidson right now and just feeling like the man?
He gets whatever girl he wants, that man. I don't know.
Ariana Grande.
Gotta be bigger than 10 inches.
I can't stand Pete Davidson, and I think the whole thing, to use the word, was a psyop when he...
Oh, yeah.
Because what was weird is...
It was for a TV show.
Well, you can see when it's all planned. Pete Davidson dates Kim Kardashian, and then he has a star on SNL, and then I see him in all these commercials. So whatever he did, someone was like, okay, it's time for the Pete Davidson show. He's accepted into whatever this echelon is, so he got everything. So I almost viewed the whole Kim Kardashian thing as whoever these handlers are that control like a lot of these pop stars. They're like, okay, he's in the in crowd now. Here you go. And he's gotten it.
And also, Ryan Seacrest is running their show. It's over a decade long. You got to keep coming up with stories.
Yep.
Here comes Pete. Boom.
Yep.
Here comes Pete on Saturday Night Live. Boom. Here comes Pete with a mental breakdown because he's around Kris Jenner.
Did he have a mental breakdown?
He smashed the coffee machine, punched the van.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what was his fall from grace? Is he still with Kim? He's not, right?
No, he's with some other hot chick.
He's with some other, 20. But he had mental issues before and drug issues before.
I think he's got a 12-inch soft. I don't know. That's just me.
I'm sure he does.
Could you do some research due diligence and find out for us, Rob?
Our research shows at least 10.
At least
10.
And he's Caucasian.
Yeah.
So he really got lucky. And I'm not being racist. Just
there's like this rule I always joke about where it's like, okay, if you're a politician and your nudes get leaked, if you're hot, then like doesn't matter. Yep. It was like Melania Trump's nudes got leaked. It's like, oh no, she's hot. Right.
But if it was Donald Trump's penis,
yeah, you don't want to see
dead.
That. But like even with Pete Davidson,
you don't want to see that.
I know it's like with Pete Davidson, it's like this man with a 10-inch dick. It's like, oh no, you got me. All right, like it's just so funny. So Kanye's obviously not super stable either, but once again, that seems like the norm, right?
I think he's super smart. I think his mind just is going too fast for his mouth, and I don't think he knows how to talk, how to talk out. I don't think he knows how to act, and I think he also has, everything he does is under a microscope. You know what I mean? Everything that man does. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't do stupid ass crazy stuff, but I do think he's extremely smart. Extremely smart.
The Kanye arc is interesting just because to have seen, because he really got his stardom in the early 2000s.
Yeah, right when he came out with that album, when his jaw was wired shut.
Yes.
He was really on point then. And then it seems like 2 or 3 after that when he moved with, who'd he go with? What record company did he go with?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't remember.
Whoever he ended up signing with, it was Jay-Z. He went with Jay-Z.
Oh, was it? Okay.
That's when he started to get, it seemed like things were starting to get a little odd. And then Amber Rose, is it Amber Rose he was dating for a while? The bald-headed girl?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of set him off a little bit. And then Kim just...
That's like the whole thing now, and I don't know the full story on it. I was talking to my buddy about it today. The Balencia, you guys know?
Oh, that commercial?
Yeah, what's going on behind that? That's a big deal.
That's weird, isn't it?
Big deal.
And now they're suing the company, acting like they didn't know anything.
And Kim Kardashian came out.
She didn't speak out right away. They said, and
now she is. Now she's saying, I have to rethink this, and I have to rethink my partnership, and blah blah blah. Even though her ink, I'm sure, is signed on a nice hefty contract. And
I mean, what I don't ever understand is, with the whole, they're saying it's child pedophilia, all that different stuff. I don't know. I can't speak too much, but I don't know about it. I didn't research it much, but there's stuff that's just wrong. How could you not speak up about it? Like, there's stuff in life that's just wrong.
Greed.
Right? It's just wrong.
Greed, man.
Complete wrong.
Straight greed.
Because you're going to go down now with the fucking ship.
They won't go down. I think Kris Jenner's the fucking devil, the devil itself walking. There's not one guy that's been in that family that didn't leave nuts. Tristan Thompson won a championship with Miami. Fucking starts dating Chloe. Where's he at?
Yeah.
Where'd he go? What happened to him?
It's a good question.
Fucking, I mean, we can just go through the list.
I always like Courtney.
Scott Disick, I mean, he's been on a bender for 10 years, you know what I mean, on and off. Then you got Lamar. We all know what happened with Lamar. I mean, can you name one person that any of them dated that didn't go crazy?
Reggie Bush, his career went downhill.
Reggie Bush, you don't even hear about him.
Yeah.
I think it's all, and who knows the behind the scenes, but some of this stuff is the Kardashians are painted as the prize, right? And you get the prize, but you don't realize what comes attached to that, right? And that's so true. I mean, Kanye, that's the epitome of Kanye. He got Kim Kardashian. And you have to think to yourself, okay, he seems genuine when he says, oh, I love my kids, I love my family, I want to be with my kids. But I'm like, okay, but did you know who you were? You dated someone because of the status and the prize. Like, you're not telling me there's no one else you couldn't have dated and married and had kids with. Maybe. So it's a status symbol, right? It's a status.
Maybe not.
But that's the price.
But you don't know if it was a status symbol.
Well, how is that not? I mean, saying you're having sex with Kim Kardashian and now she's carrying your children, and like, even if she gives him hell, those are his genes, right? Walking around, like, those are his kids, right?
True.
So that's the ultimate, like, Kanye could die. He's got kids with Kim Kardashian, right? So, but that's the price you pay. So now the price he's paying is whatever's going on now. And same with all the other people. So Icarus flying too close to the sun.
Yeah.
And apparently the Kardashian family's the sun. I don't know if I like this mythology anymore.
I don't know what, I don't know. All I know is Ryan Seacrest's pockets are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Spotify bought her out. You know that?
No, who? Kim?
Yeah.
Bought what out?
Her,
like, brand?
So, yeah.
Her name?
Yeah. So, like, for, like, audio or video or whatever. So, like, Rogan, Spotify exclusive. Me, Spotify exclusive. Some girl, Spotify. It's exclusive. She's Spotify.
That's crazy. What a win.
So, Kim Kardashian, a Spotify whatever
exclusive
show, a Spotify show, not exclusive, a Spotify show, which means they bought her out for her show. This episode is brought to you by Fiji. More than just water.
This is not just rock. It's ancient volcanic rock that filters tropical rain, giving it double the electrolytes and its signature soft, smooth taste. It's not just water, it's Fiji water.
This podcast is brought to you by Monster Energy. Tear into a can of the meanest energy drink on the planet, Monster Energy. It's the ideal combo of the right ingredients in the right proportion to deliver a big bad buzz that only Monster can. Monster packs a powerful punch, has a smooth, easy drinking flavor. Athletes, musicians, co-eds, road warriors, metalheads, geeks, hipsters, and bikers dig it. You will too. Monster Energy is more than just the green OG. Monster has Monster Ultra, Juice Monster, Monster Hydro, Rehab Monster, Dragon Tea, Monster Max, Muscle Monster, and many more. Buy on Amazon, buy on Walmart, or go to monsterenergy.com and believe me, you'll find a place. Unleash the beast. Monster Energy.
Mean like Keeping Up with the Kardashians is Spotify?
No, it just means as far as like a podcast.
Or if she wants to do anything
Podcast-ish has to be only Spotify.
Does that also involve like, oh, I want to make TikToks and stuff like that?
Yeah, she probably can't do TikTok.
That's so interesting. That's a smart move on their part.
I wonder what they paid.
You can't find that out?
No, they hide the number. They are so insane about what they pay. It's nuts.
Really?
I mean, you maybe try to Google it,
I'll look.
see if we can find it. But
I was thinking about the other day.
whatever comes up on Google, you want to multiply that by 4.
Does Spotify? So I have Spotify. I love Spotify. Do they have a monopoly on that market? I'm trying to think of how you would replace a Spotify. Like I get YouTube's trying to do YouTube Red. I hate YouTube Red. No one wants to use YouTube Red. Apple Music, I don't like it. Right? Spotify's just awesome. I like it. It's easy. It's simple. The more you use it, the more you're attached because you have your playlists and stuff like that. I wonder how you get rid of a Spotify.
All it says here is she releases her first Spotify exclusive podcast.
Yeah, but she's not exclusive anymore. Try it on Google. Try on go to Google and try to search it rather than Brave. Put in how much did Spotify pay Kim Kardashian?
What a simple signature she has. That's actually a very pretty signature.
I bet you can't do that 10 times exactly like that.
I bet you she can. I bet you of the 10 things she can do, one of them is that signature.
Maybe that's why it's so small. She could have just went like this, right? You know what I mean? But yeah, they bought her out. So when I had talked to the handler for the exclusive shit, he said in 23 they're doing an overhaul because they bought Megaphone. They acquired like $50 billion, more than they're worth in acquisitions. So and I see them starting to slowly implement it. So I think within the next 2 years that will be above YouTube. Because they don't censor, they just put a. I mean,
now they have the videos. You can watch the video.
Yeah, now anybody could put up video. Before you had to be exclusive. Now anybody can. You could talk politics. You could talk Biden, Trump. You can talk whatever you want, and they're not going to knock you off. You know what I mean?
It says it's unclear, but it's over $100 million.
Okay, so she got 500.
A lot.
She got at least 500. Because she got 4 or 5 times whatever that says for sure.
Got it.
So $500 million. $500 million.
Probably more.
Probably a year.
Probably more.
Yeah.
I bet more.
Probably a shit ton. Have you been drinking lately?
Maybe I should be.
I thought you would, but you could pull up tab 4 with the FTX and everything.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it just goes on and on with this, Sam.
So the FTX
everything
thing,
got hit.
Yes. And seeing what really hurts me
one before that, Rob.
Seeing Tom Brady get hurt through this. Because I like Tom Brady.
$473 million, Sam. I thought it couldn't get hacked, Sam.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, that's not the blockchain getting hacked. Get out of here.
Well, what
that's
is
the
this?
exchange getting hacked.
Okay, so break this down for me.
Yeah.
Because we've tried to have other people break it down. And
who, on the show or just personally?
On the show. I know, right? Didn't we?
No, not FTX, but...
Oh, maybe I was saving it for you. Okay. Break this shit down for me. Scroll down, Rob.
Yeah.
Okay, Rob, read a little bit of that, and let's have Sam.
Cryptocurrency exchange FTX, which filed for bankruptcy Friday, is investigating whether crypto assets were stolen and has moved all its digital assets offline. All right, so that sentence right there, Sam, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yep.
All right. Filed for bankruptcy, right?
Yep.
So this money, or this crypto, right, it disappeared. They filed for bankruptcy, but
nothing disappears.
So what happened? Where did this go?
So if you recall, the last time I was on here talking about Bitcoin, everything's about your private key, right? And so let me rehash. Your private key is like a PO box. So when you buy your Bitcoin on an exchange, right, you put it in a wallet. That wallet has a public key and a private key. The public key is the address that anyone can insert anything in your PO box. But to get access to the crypto, you need that private key. That private key is normally, a bunch of letters and numbers in a language called SHA-256. But so us humans don't have to remember that. That phrase is translated normally anywhere from 12 to 24 words. So you get a crypto wallet, you write down your 12 to 24 words, and as long as I have those, I have access to my crypto, right? So I can throw this in the river. I can completely destroy my computer. But if I have those 12 to 24 words, I can get into that PO box. Okay, so here's the difference, right? So the saying is my keys, my coins. On an exchange, when you make a Coinbase account, you will notice you're never prompted to write down your 12 to 24 words. Why? Because you don't have the key. The exchange has the key. It's all in the exchange vault. So the exchanges are easy to access. They're easy to buy crypto. But until you take it off that exchange, they have the key.
Like a Robinhood or no?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot like a Robinhood, correct. So FTX was the epitome of that. But a lot of these exchanges do this. Not all of them, but a lot. Where, like Coinbase, if I have Bitcoin being held on Coinbase right now, if my Coinbase account gets hacked, it's gone, right? If I forget my Coinbase password and I don't remember it, well, I have to ask Coinbase to give me access. I don't have access to my Bitcoin, right? Because Coinbase, the company, has a vault, which they own the private key to, which is what makes this really interesting when it comes to legislation, because the big question when Celsius went bankrupt and now when FTX went bankrupt is who owns the assets?
Oh, shit. Celsius went bankrupt too?
Oh, yeah, way back when.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, 6-8 months ago.
Did you know that?
No, not that Celsius.
Oh.
No, not the drink.
Oh, I'm thinking
not the drink, the exchange.
Oh, okay.
There was a Celsius exchange, and they were based out of Tampa, FTX in Miami, so we'll go Florida.
Oh, I apologize.
So the question is, it's just like a bank. If you go to the bank and you say, give me $10,000, they're going to ask you why, right? They're going to ask you, well, actually, maybe we can't give it all to you right now, right? So whose money is it? Is it your money or is it the banks? Well, frankly, it's the banks, right? So crypto's created to say, screw that, you earned this, it's your money. But humans always prefer ease and comfort, and I could even say centralization over anything else. So human nature dictates that we follow the same pattern. That same pattern is a crypto exchange that holds your Bitcoin, that technically, and through some legal definitions, maybe not actually be your Bitcoin, even though that's antithetical to what this stuff is. So FTX files for bankruptcy. The assets were stolen, which is a whole nother rabbit hole because FTX was also tied. So hopefully I explained that. Now I'm going to go down another rabbit hole. Is that okay?
The exchange, yep.
So most exchanges don't keep your Bitcoin on there, right? Case in point, always have it on like a ledger where you have to write down these words. As long as you have to write down words, you know you're good, right? So that's what you can remember. So FTX, really just an ingenious fraud operation. So the founding of FTX is weird. The business practices are weird. What I can tell you, and this is not like Sam's hindsight, I remember a year ago hearing about what was called the FTX Mafia. So this is what I like to call the cost of adoption. So people in crypto are always like, we need adoption. We need more people involved in Bitcoin, in crypto, in blockchain. So we want to spread it to the masses. Well, in 2020 till 2022, the big wave of adoption was in finance and Wall Street. And I used to always tell these people, I'm like, congratulations, adoption's about to happen, but it's about to be Wall Street adoption, which sure drives up the value, but brings Wall Street practices with it. And Sam Bankman-Fried was the epitome of Wall Street practices where you were incredibly aggressive. So I knew some of this beforehand, just through buddies of mine, but what has come to light is what FTX would do is FTX was tied to a hedge fund called Alameda. And Alameda did all kinds of supposedly high-frequency trading and arbitrage and stuff like that. But Alameda was an investment arm, and what Alameda would do is they would say, we're going to invest in your company, right? We're going to give you, let's say, $10 million. But one, you have to use our token, which was either FTT or Solana, right? FTT was the internal token to FTX. And then Solana was the external token, right?
Is that like another like Ethereum
exactly,
or Lithium,
correct.
same type of thing?
And Solana was supposed to be this Ethereum killer or whatever. I heard a lot of people say Solana was BS, that it wasn't even really a blockchain. Most of that stuff is probably true. But I viewed Solana as a bet on Sam Bankman's aggressive Wall Street practices in the crypto realm. So if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have been like, Solana will probably do pretty well, because I thought he was just going to keep getting away with being aggressive, right? Which I think he very well could have. Obviously, he lost his marbles. So Alameda would say, we're going to invest $10 million in your company, but you either have to hold it in our tokens, but also you have to hold those tokens on FTX.
On the exchange.
On the exchange, which, given our conversation just now, meant that company did not have custody of those funds, right? So then things get iffy. There's all these bankruptcies going on. Crypto's taking a hit. And Sam makes a very sketchy loan, either from FTX to Alameda or Alameda to FTX, which looked like he used those user funds. Where it gets complicated is Sam used those practices for multiple companies, multiple companies, and multiple hedge funds had left their funds on the FTX exchange. So when FTX went under, or started going under, which was started by what looks to be the head of Binance, Global, there was like a leak balance sheet of FTX. And this is in one of those timelines that I think I sent you, where you can actually see, let's see, no, do another one, next. Let's see, is that one it? That might be it, yes. So on November 2nd, documents leaked showing large FTT position in the Alameda silo balance sheet. What that means is this guy CZ, who's the head of Binance, essentially saw that there were going to be some liquidity problems at FTX, right? November 6th is when he essentially says, we're pulling out all of our funding, and immediately creates a run at FTX and makes their liquidity problem 10 times worse. He then says, well, FTX actually asked for our help, right, because of this liquidity crunch that he caused, right, by seeing these leaked balance sheets, and says we might be able to help them out. He gets one look at how bad the books are. He's like, nope, can't do anything. And the whole system just unwinds and starts to collapse.
When he says we will be conducting a full DD in the coming, what's DD mean?
Due diligence.
Due diligence.
Yeah.
And before that, he says he's going to liquidate a quarter of his crypto or whatever. FTT.
Yep.
And then November 9th, as a result of corporate due diligence, as well as the latest news reports regarding mishandled customer funds and alleged U.S. agency investigations, we have decided that we will not pursue the potential acquisition of FTX.
So easily explained, business partner A is moving funds around illegally, but he can get away with it in the Bernie Madoff style as long as no one's asking for their money back. Business partner B says secretly somehow finds out where the pain points are in business partner A's liquidity, like what money he can't get back immediately. He goes, oh, you're going to go under, so I'm just going to pull all my cash out and make you go under right now. That's what CZ does.
And then SBF requests to merge. Who's SBF?
Sam Bankman-Fried.
Sam Bankman-Fried.
So then Sam Bankman, business partner A, goes, can you guys bail us out and save us? And the CEO of Binance, business partner B, goes, we'll look into it. Let's open up your books. They open up their books and go, man, that's a giant money laundering operation. I can't handle that. So they pull out, and that's when all the drama starts, where it's essentially, okay, FTX is now going under.
I see. So the Bahamas freezes it. Then they announce the trading winding down. Then SBF resigns at 4:30 in the morning, Chapter 11.
How is this guy still in the Bahamas hanging out.
Well, so this gets really weird. So pull up the slide that showed the political donations that was before this. Yes, that one. So
Can you blow that up, Rob?
it's,
Probably got
no, it's right there.
Oh, shit.
That was the one.
Yeah, I just wanted to blow it up, make it full screen.
Oh, blow it
yeah,
up.
he'll get a full screen. Go ahead, Sam.
So Sam was interesting because he was a huge donor. And once again, had you asked me a year ago, I would have told you one of the reasons I'm so bullish on someone like Sam or FTX or Solana, which was tied to all FTX, was that he was aggressive in politics. So he was funding people out the wazoo. He, the first Gen Z candidate here in Congress, was very pro crypto. He's an awesome guy named Maxwell Frost. Won his primary handily, and then won the general election. He got a lot of money from FTX and from Sam, right? A lot of politicians did. Of course, at the time, no one knew this was like the fraud operation that it was. So that's why I hate when people look in hindsight and are like, look at all this dirty money people receive. It's like, not a lot of these people knew.
Was it mainly Democratic or Republican candidates?
So I would tell you probably 80 to 85% were Democratic candidates, and the other 15 were Republican. So he did give some to like Mitch McConnell. So what's interesting is like he gave it to what people would consider rhino candidates to try to get out like Trump MAGA candidates in primaries. And that's what people like McConnell and McCarthy used, right? Money-wise, at least supposedly. But most of it went to Democrats, which you could also think from a strictly political point of view, okay, the Democrats controlled all of Congress and the executive, right? So you could argue, okay, Sam was just playing the field, right? Also, the heads of the SEC, like Gary Gensler, who's very close with the Elizabeth Warren. So there's obviously very Democratic ties to his field and industry.
And what would be the benefit to him to give the money to the Democrats?
Well, we're about to find out.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not in jail yet, right? The media, New York Times articles have been extremely soft. The fact that he's not in jail yet for one of the largest
crazy
fraud operations, I mean, that's the benefit, right? And that's a pretty nice benefit. And that's why I'm like, he played the game exactly how you're supposed to play it. Now, the question is, how long will that go on? Will he actually be punished? What's funny is they could just use this as an excuse to regulate the crypto industry to say we need to prevent this from happening again. But where it gets fishy is this dude's dad and mom had ties to top echelon people in the DNC and Democratic Party, working on Democratic campaigns. His dad apparently went to MIT or was close with Gary Gensler, who's the guy at the SEC, who's the one who enforces, right, any kind of securities fraud. So this is right in his jurisdiction.
Clinton.
This episode is sponsored by Aurora. Do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is? For years, this crime rate has been surging and affecting millions of Americans. I'm talking about identity theft, and there's a new victim every 14 seconds. Yet despite this, those who have had their identity stolen are often shocked when it happens. That's why I'm excited to partner with Aurora, who is sponsoring this video. Aurora is identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and antivirus software all into one easy-to-use app. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. Protect you and your family from America's fastest growing crime. Try Aurora for free for 2 weeks and see if you or anyone in your family's personal information has been compromised. Start your free trial today. Go to aurora.com/MSCS. The link is in the description below.
Right?
What did you say, Rob? I can't hear you over there.
Clinton.
Did you say Obama, too? I think you said Clinton and Obama.
So it's very interesting. And the reason I'm interested, almost back to our conversation with Apple and Twitter, I'm always interested in how blatant people are going to be. Because the more blatant they are, that's a signal that they feel secure and comfortable. So if nothing happens to this guy, or if he gets a slap on the wrist, or if he's put in jail but doesn't have to go to jail for 10 years, or he's put in jail in the Bahamas in a nice island and resort, right? If it's very blatant, they're signaling that they don't care, they don't need your opinion to matter, and they can get away with whatever they want. Right?
They know that nothing's going to happen to them.
Because where it gets even fishier is all the money we've been giving to Ukraine, allegedly, Ukraine partnered with FTX and was holding cryptocurrency on FTX's balance sheet. So people think that our federal government was giving money to Ukraine, and then FTX was the money laundering washing machine that it was going through. That's the theory. I don't know if you can actually track that money movement to like a Ukrainian crypto wallet or address. Or
I still don't know why we're helping out Ukraine to begin with, but
good question.
I mean, they had plenty of opportunity to be in NATO, and they kept doing their dirty shit, and they're fucking with little kids over there and everything else. So, whatever.
Ukraine's an interesting conversation too, but with FTX, and in a sense, it's in the same vein. But it's all, what bets are you making on the establishment, whatever that means, surviving, right? And Sam's bet was, well, he comes from very well-connected parents. He has a fund and exchange that, one, were managed by a bunch of 20-year-olds in the Bahamas who were polyamorous, sleeping around together, and essentially didn't do anything. So then you have to question, okay, who are their handlers, right? Just like we're talking about with the Kardashians and Kanye. Who are their handlers? Who's really behind the scenes? But then what will be their consequences? Who's the fall guy? I mean, so I just read an article today that was praising Sam's funding of COVID research.
But here's the thing. You look at this guy, Sam, right? You look at him.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, what does your gut tell you?
My gut tells me that the Democrats got to him, and I see George Soros' name at the top, and all I've been hearing for the last month is Soros, and the other guy at nausea. So I think they knew that Sam was a smart, nerdy, geeky guy that lived on the crypto shit or whatever. And somebody went to him and they said, here, look, this is what you're going to do. And this is how you're going to do it. And that's what he did. And I think worst case scenario, maybe they put him on some bullshit island, for a year just to act like they did something. Pull up the Post article because he did fucking Brady's in this, Steph Curry.
I know all the celebrities who promoted it.
And Biden, yeah, right. He was part of it, I'm sure. But I mean, like, look at him.
I know.
What did he just wake up and decide I'm going to donate 10% to the Republican, 80%, 90% to the Democrats? I'm going to do that with fucking $1 billion,
That always goes back. I have this discussion with my buddy. We talk daily politics, and
boy,
I'm one that, and it's hard to say this, right? Both parties are corrupt, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think there's the leaders of these parties, and I think you have the Democrat and the Republican. Let me get through this if this makes sense. And, Mitch McConnell, use him for example, using Nancy Pelosi for example. They cause this bickering back and forth, and they hate each other, and they do this, and it's just to get everybody divided and looking the other way. And I think they're in stuff together. These Pelosi's of the world, these Mitch McConnells, they've been in Congress forever, and they're just keep growing in wealth and wealth and wealth. I think at the end of the day, they're linked together through somehow with this, in my opinion. It's just hard to believe that they're not related somehow.
I think when I don't think that's opinion, I think that's a fact. And I think that's a fact that 95% of Americans agree with. The question is always, what is the avenue, right? Like, money needs to move.
Yeah.
How do you move the money? And how do you move the money in a way that it benefits you, is inconspicuous, or if there's fallout, you can still use? The political betting is always interesting because these are conversations that none of us will ever be on the inside room on. But you have to imagine, if you're approached and someone says, we're going to use you for a laundering operation, but we'll protect you. But will they really protect you? Right? Like, a lot of this is signaling. And so it's curious, like, do they protect someone like Sam if he was a victim of their bidding to show future handlers of theirs that, yeah, we'll get your back. But on the flip side, they've buried people before, and people always willingly sign up because they think they'll be treated different. So everyone knows the system's corrupt. No one argues that. Everyone knows that there's kind of this uniparty, as they call it, that has the same agenda that's really not all that different. McConnell and Pelosi, Schumer and McCarthy go out to dinner together, right? It's not like they actually hate each other. They play the show. They've known each other for 50 freaking years, right? So that's why I don't hate on anybody. Like now it's, okay, who received money from FTX, right? Whether you're a politician, an organization, or who is tied to it, or who were stupid enough to put their money on it. I don't hate on any of these people. A lot of it's this opportunists saying, oh, well, like I got lucky. I just was never interested in putting money on FTX's exchange. Even though I'm crypto, I always joke that I'm very risk averse, right? I'm very Bitcoin heavy. I keep my own private keys on a ledger somewhere around the United States type deal. But that's also because I don't have the time
to really
to look at everything. There's 2,000 different tokens.
I don't.
Right? So
I think they got to do something to him because he went too far. When you're dealing with a Brady and a Curry, they. But who knows?
This is a question for you, Sam. And we talked about it last time you were in here, and we're talking about FTX. I understand the exchange. I understand that whole aspect, right?
Yep.
We're talking about Bitcoin, and you're talking about your secret key. You're talking about all this stuff. I could just hear my 82-year-old dad on my shoulder talking right now and saying, gold is gold, right? Gold is something you can physically hold in your hand, and either you have it or you don't have it.
Yep.
A $100 bill now it could be a fake $100 bill, but if it's a real $100 bill, you have the real $100 bill in your hand. I go back, and I know this is a little different, maybe the FTX thing with the Bitcoin. How can you be assured that that is safe till the end of time and that can never be broken into, and somebody just can't pull the shut-off switch and it's gone? Poof.
Yep.
How?
So, back up. The dollar is just fiat money, and it's all going digital. So, and that can all be shut off by the Federal Reserve. And when it's a digital dollar,
Correct.
You're going to have an app on your phone that can literally be shut off.
Yep.
So that is a reality, and correct, that will happen, right? So the dollar's out. So then we're left with gold and Bitcoin. Gold's great, but how do I transport gold? How do I hide gold? It is physical, but also when you think of the barter system, because now we've been so detached from gold. Let's say the world ends and I have a bunch of gold bars and I need bread. How do I determine what that bread's valued as, and why is gold even valuable, right? Like But
you could say the same thing about Bitcoin. The world ends, there's no internet, it's useless. You lost all your money.
Correct. The difference is Bitcoin, as long as there's internet, although they're working on doing radio frequency stuff.
Yeah, but you're comparing gold to the world ends and there's no internet.
Correct.
So then you have to compare crypto to the world ends.
Transportation would really be my main point. And access.
But with the crypto, you wouldn't be able to transport anything because there is nothing. At least with the gold, you have something.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like in a world end scenario, like if the internet's out, what's interesting about gold is who owns all the gold now? Governments.
Yeah.
Right? That's been probably one of the most interesting things that isn't talked about too much, is throughout the last century, gold has been consolidated into government hands, right? Okay, you can get gold at a pawn shop, but still you could also argue in some senses that gold is very centralized. But gold is still, it's still a store of value, right? So I don't hate on gold. I think people should still own gold. However, the biggest problem to me would just be transportation, which is transit and anonymity, right? Because it's also just hard to hide gold, right? Like true value. Like if I want to hide $50 million of gold, where the hell do I hide that? Yeah. If I'm in Colombia and I'm a drug cartel, maybe that's easier. If I'm running from Uncle Sam in Florida, maybe not so easy, right? So it's maybe not a money physical question. It's a value and security question. And that's probably where Bitcoin comes in, right? And so I know
And
there's.
I would say this.
Yeah.
Say we go to war.
Sure.
Right. Say China does what I think they're going to do. Let's say we step in like idiots and get involved, which we shouldn't. And let's just say they hit the power grid, which is what I think would happen. I don't think China is going to do any war with like us. It would be like a tech war.
Yeah.
Right. They hit the power grid. There's no internet.
Yeah.
There's no Bitcoin.
So what's interesting is if I have that private key, technically it means I couldn't use it in America, but if I can get anywhere else with internet or even intranet, I'd be fine. Right? So that Bitcoin's still valuable in Argentina, Peru, China, right? Like if China goes to internet warfare against us.
China doesn't even have Bitcoin, do they? They have their own
they do.
coin.
No, they're creating or going to create their own, but there's still people who transact in Bitcoin in China.
Do they?
Yeah.
All right, break down this Bitcoin. Go to the next tab. Now, this is straight Bitcoin that got hit for 47 million. Now, can you explain this one?
Yeah. So once again,
like fucking exchange.
hackers, correct. So do you even need me to explain it?
No.
Hackers stole more than 7,000 Bitcoin from crypto exchange Binance. So they got a hold of that key, that private key, and that's how they got it. Or they got a hold of those accounts.
I guess I just have a hard time, and I get everything you say, Sam, and I'm not saying, oh, how, like, we sit here and we can say, oh, my phone can never be hacked. This can, everything, I'm convinced there's not one thing on this earth that can't be hacked or taken.
I mean,
how can
the NFTs got hacked like hell. The fucking Web3
the exchanging, I understand. I totally understand the exchange. I get that. But
great job on that.
Bitcoin itself, how can you be so confident that it can never be hacked, or you can wake up tomorrow and go, what the fuck? How come I can't get on here? Where'd it go? How?
So I had an experience where I got a hardware wallet that I'm talking to you about, and I had a private key, and I wrote it down and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I plugged it in to do a software update, and the thing would not update. And I could not get my shit off of it. And I was like flipping out. I'm like, and I didn't put a lot of my Bitcoin on there. I put just like a test amount because I was like, I wasn't sure of this brand, whatever. And so I was like flipping out. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, is this Bitcoin gone? Right? So I called my friend and they're like, well, did you write down your private key? I was like, yeah. Like, okay. So just buy another hardware wallet, enter in your private key, and you're good. So that's what I did. And I was good. Right? So that wallet I no longer needed, and I just transferred all my Bitcoin just by entering in that private key to this new wallet.
But say you didn't have that friend to call.
Well, then I would have so I should have known that. That's me being stupid, right? So I shouldn't have inherently known, given what I know, that I could have just gotten another hardware wallet. I was just panicking, right, in the time. The friend didn't actually help me. It's not like they gave me some special wallet. I could have gone on Amazon and just got a new wallet, right? Just in the heat of the moment, you're stupid, right? And I am like other people. I am stupid, right? But you're right in the sense that everything is hackable. Even that private key comes down to the risk of, well, someone could steal that from my house. So now it's just back to gold again in the sense where someone could steal that in my house. I could get it written down. I have people who engrave their private keys on steel plates. What the Winklevoss brothers do, apparently, is they have multiple crypto wallets all over the United States in multiple P.O. boxes, and some of them, they have part of their phrase, part of their 24 or 12-letter seed phrase in one part of the world, and then another part of the world, right? And that is, like, awesome. Like, how the hell you have to... The only one who could get there is if the U.S. just decides, okay, we're going to screw these guys hard and go after it all. But even, for all I know, they got some in Argentina where they have one word in Argentina, whatever. That's ultimate level security. But even my own Bitcoin, if someone were to raid a house or, the multiple houses that I might have my keys in and able to put it all together, so then physical location becomes the greatest risk, right?
I guess what I'm saying is, can someone... They don't have to break into your house. They don't have to hold you at gunpoint.
If it's a private key,
they can just go into the system. Like, you say China, you say Putin, whoever is...
Like, there's a back door.
Like, who...
We
know Putin has a back door.
Who is this puppet? And I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
is there a puppet master? And you guys are, and I say you guys because I'm not invested in it, but are, Bitcoin, and it can never be hacked. And I have my private key, and if you come to my house, I don't need to go to your house. I don't need to hold you at gunpoint. I am the puppet master, and all I got to do now is boop and doop, switch off. I'm really serious.
So there's always a trade-off between ease and comfort and security, right? So if I have it on my phone, you could probably get into it one way or another through SIM hacking, although you can do anti-SIM hacking stuff, right, and precautions. But because my phone's easy and comfortable, there's a more likelihood you could get it on that. If it's on a hardware wallet, there's no way you can get into that unless you have my hardware wallet. So if you steal it, you can get it. But if it's on a hardware wallet, there's nothing you can do digitally to get to that.
What's a hardware wallet?
Hardware, it's essentially a USB that you have to plug in, right, to then have access to your crypto.
So then it's equivalent to gold.
Correct. Exactly.
In that aspect.
Correct. Which is why they do call Bitcoin digital gold. The whole point of Bitcoin was to make a decentralized internet currency, right?
Right.
So to me, the whole Bitcoin gold debate is more like they're both good. You should own both. You should own both as a bet against fiat
dollar.
currency,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
In general.
Yeah.
They're just different. The difference not bad, right? Gold's been around forever, will continue to be around forever. But gold is different in that it's a physical asset. Like I said, how do you hide $50 million worth of gold in your house? Right? Bitcoin, I can hide $50 million in my house pretty easy. I can write it on a note, put it in my shoe, run halfway across the country. No one will know it's in a metal detector, and I'll be fine. And then I get my 50 Bitcoin in Thailand, trade it for that Thai currency, and I'm good. Right? How do I do that with gold? Right?
But I have the gold. I know I have the gold. I know where the gold came from. The crypto stuff, we don't know for sure who is the puppet master. I think anyone, even you, with all due respect, if you don't think there's a puppet master with this kind of money flying around, go in the streets for a while. And you'll understand in about a month, believe me, when there's this kind of money, there's somebody.
I think what's
just
interesting,
my opinion.
I think what's interesting
open-minded
is
guy.
Most of the time when there's a puppet master, it has value pretty quickly. I mean, you have to remember Bitcoin from 2008 to 2012 is pizza slices. So you have to think, well, what's the puppet master's intention?
Well,
right?
What I think is that the puppet master came in when it went, oh, there's value in this. And then all of a sudden it goes from what? What was it, like 7 cents and 70 cents? I know my friend bought a fucking $2 million house back then in Tampa, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
A good friend, smart friend.
He got it early. I think he sold it when it went up to maybe like $19. He got it like $7, when it was in the cents. Early on, or like $1.
What's interesting is like the Sams of the world pump up the value. But Sam's not a puppet master. He's a guy who used it, gave it value, right? But he still couldn't control it. It's like when, what was the market George Soros was trying to corner? Was it the pound, British pound, or I remember story of this guy who was trying to corner the silver market. Like, you learn all kinds of things about these commodities, which Bitcoin's a commodity, or it's essentially acts like a digital commodity, where people try to corner their market, right? But they always lose. That tells me that people try to gain control and try to be a puppet master, but unless it starts from that point, which is what you would have to argue that Satoshi Nakamoto was a Fed and he built in a back door. But once again, it is open source, so the community can view every line of code. What makes it unique really is proof of work and understanding how proof of work really secures the Bitcoin blockchain, which now there's very few proof of work algorithms. Like Ethereum's no longer proof of work, like it's just Bitcoin. So proof of work, which is kind of what it comes down to, which is the whole Bitcoin mining stuff that I've talked about in the past, is really what secures it.
And do you see, I mean, with like any society and how we've seen things grow and technology advance in light years really fast, that within 5 years, 10 years, that you may have serious things that it could be hacked as people get smarter and delved
Yes.
into stuff that, shit, we do have to watch this. This could maybe be hacked now. The thing that can never be hacked, now it can be because it's...
Correct. And I say never, right? It hasn't been hacked to this day. I've heard quantum computing can hack that, SHA-256, although then you have quant proof code, which is like SHA-512,
Fuck writing that.
right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, whoever's doing that is going to spend a lot of time.
well, it's already written.
to break through it.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean,
so
I can't even imagine.
it's like anything. Nothing in this world's perfect. Not even gold. Otherwise, we'd be using it right now, right? I mean, there's a reason, supposedly, like we went off the gold system, right? People were generally okay with that. So I am not. I try to be a realist as much as possible, right? A lot of people, which I fundamentally disagree with, they essentially make Bitcoin their religion. You'll see people who are like, Bitcoin's going to make the world peaceful again. They look to sound money is what it's called, sound money. Sound money will solve all our problems, will generate a new renaissance through sound money. They look back in history and they link all these great historical events to sound money and human tragedies to bad money. And there's probably some truth to that. Money is important, but money's like any technology. It doesn't rule the world. It's just another part of it, right? Bitcoin is not going to stop war. We had war on the gold standard, right? And if Bitcoin's trying to return to a kind of quasi gold standard, you don't think people are going to fight over that, right? If anything, the hope was originally that Bitcoin would create a society for those who are unbanked. That's always the popular phrase, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Satoshi, he had originally, the thought behind it was an alternative to the dollar that he saw decreasing in the future. That was the initial,
not even just a dollar,
and the demonetized of it.
Fiat currency in general.
Yeah.
So, and that comes from the cyberpunk movement, which in the 90s viewed, these cyberpunks are anarchists, crypto anarchists, nerds, right? Who essentially just hate banks because they view them as a financial form of control. So they've been trying to figure out a way to create a decentralized currency forever. And Satoshi just goes, oh, well, so their eCash, DigiCash all failed because they were centralized. I made one that was decentralized.
Now,
right.
Sorry, this may be a stretch here.
Hit me.
Okay. Crypto, Bitcoin, whatever we want to call it, is a way to, you said, give people that may have not been able to...
That was one of the missions originally.
I
don't know if it's true anymore. But
could it be the plan of a bigger force? We can go down rabbit holes all day long here, but a bigger controlling force to say, this is now the whole world is
the one world currency.
Correct. And it becomes this socialistic force that just pushes across the entire universe. And now there are no rich, there are no poor. We're all
I never thought about it like
socialistic.
Well, so one, okay, so there's a lot of problems with that argument. One, if that's happening, it's not Bitcoin, right? And that's why we're developing a digital dollar. Otherwise, we would have just been like promoting Bitcoin. That's why China's promoting a digital yuan. So Bitcoin's not the answer because these governments know they can't control it. And two, we both know that no one actually wants some social currency where everyone's equal, right? So even the digital dollar, what's the point of that? They're okay with you being equal to everybody else, but we're not going. Correct?
Yeah.
So if that's what you mean, then yeah, sure. But that's how it's always been. That's always been the avenue, right? Yeah. I'm fine with you people being equal, but I certainly will not be. And even you could argue in Bitcoin, what's interesting to see how that's happening is, once again, people are saying, oh, we love adoption, or we want it to be spread to the masses. But by the time it's spread to everybody, even Bitcoin ownership is probably going to be consolidated to a select few. And the interesting trend to watch is whether a lot of these Bitcoiners still believe what they believe when they're rich, right? So is Bitcoin, this is me as like a true believer, because I do believe it is going to change and be the next wave of wealth. But is it going to be a next wave of wealth? Is Bitcoin going to be just another avenue for those who don't have power to have power.
Just look at history.
That's how everything is. And then what do they do with that power, right?
Right now? Jeez, we don't even want to know.
I know people who, in 2017, when I really started heavily, I decided, okay, this is going to be my career. When Bitcoin went from $1,000 to $20,000, and they call them Bitcoin OGs, which is a term that I'm never a fan of.
So stop right there, right? How does something go from 1,000 to 20,000 without a puppet master? How does it do that? That many people just woke up and go bang because it happened quick.
So it's actually, it's not that complicated in the sense that if you look at any adoption curve of any asset, even like if you look at the adoption curve of the internet or any technology like iPhones, there's triggers and there's ups and downs. Even with stock prices, I mean, you could argue what makes Amazon, look at the Amazon stock flow. And you go, one day people are like, oh, hell yeah, Amazon's it. It's a combination of more people are using it. Investors see more people using it and they sink big money in it. And then things get too hot and then shit fails. And so then it went from 20K to 3,500.
So another simple example would be like Apple came out with the iPod and you could spin it.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, boom, you have this amazing iPhone.
Yeah.
Right? That was just technology that occurred. It wasn't a puppet master. So
correct.
That's a good point.
Correct. My one general philosophy is to be very careful about who you think's pulling the strings, because it's like the Bush did 9/11 example. People love to create boogeymen, and sometimes creating boogeymen, it can do a number of things. One, it can make you feel safe because even if someone's evil, someone's in control and they can be stopped. As opposed to the other theory of Bush doing 9/11 or whatever the official story is.
Oh, there's an official story.
Sure.
An investigation, and I saw the paperwork.
How much of it is actual incompetence? And is it scary to believe that we live in a world that could really just be ruled by a bunch of incompetent people who maybe make the best of a situation once it fails or once it succeeds, right? I don't have any answer to that, but what I know in general is we always try to, even personally with individuals, sometimes you always try to make the enemy, whoever that is, look smarter than they are, which sometimes empowers them and emboldens them more than they really are, and you don't realize how weak and brittle they are.
What would you call a world that had 3,600 independent engineers say that 9/11 was a demolition? And what would you call a world that when you pull up the building plans, they changed every single elevator 3 weeks before 9/11, and all the elevators were changed 3 years prior?
Yep.
What would you call a world that the head of the CIA walks into Bush and Rumsfeld and says, hey, the cells are quiet 61 days before? And not Bush, but Rumsfeld says, Rick, not enough information. A legend of the CIA.
Yep.
What would you call that kind of world?
And then you have people taking out insurance policies on the buildings, and then you have people doing deals with Flightline air tickets and making bets and arbitrage. So my point of that isn't necessarily to say 9/11 wasn't sketchy, but it's just figuring out, when and where is there a puppet master, and is it there all the time, and how much influence do they have? You kind of even see that. You see that in a lot of scenarios, but that was always one of the questions with COVID too, is what is the goal, right? Because
I can tell you the goal.
Well, there could be multiple goals, but then, like, if you take a certain streamline, now you have people who are true believers who, like we were talking about, won't leave their house. Was that part of the goal, or is that a byproduct? Because that minority of people who are still paranoid, who are actually very loud and vocal, are trying to steer the conversation and fearmonger. At one point, does that get out of control? These school shootings, back to that. You can create a society that's starting to dysfunction with the hope of eventually, let's say, enforcing gun laws because you're having these school shootings or Walmart shot-ups happen, right? That's okay as long as it's not in your neighborhood, but what if that starts to happen in your neighborhood? I remember during some of those Black Lives Matter protests, who is the famous star? There was this guy who was like on Twitter, yeah, burn the neighborhood down, fuck those people. And then they come after his neighborhood. And literally he's like, get these people, where are the cops? right? So,
oh yeah, the defunded ones.
yes.
The ones that you probably wanted to defund.
Correct.
And now you want to call them, huh?
So it works until it hits your feet, right? So it's just hard to predict. So anyway, all the way back to Bitcoin, I mean, what'll be interesting is seeing if it becomes the successful asset that I think it will be, how this new group of people who will be politically influential will use it. Because I know people who, when it went from $1,000 to $20,000, espoused all these ideas about who'd they give money to, charities they would start, things that they would change, donate to politicians, and they just screwed off and had fun, checked out.
You know what it looks like when we step back, and I never step back like this. It looks like, well, it is that politics now have gotten involved in the Bitcoin because it's a sneaky way to move money. Now you have a problem because now you have political figures that can. How many people went bankrupt all of a sudden? 5, 10?
Way more.
United States Corporation.
Yep.
China Corporation. All corporations, boom, bankrupt.
That is true of anything. So once again, money moves. Money tries to find avenues to move. And if anything, it speaks to what a solid asset Bitcoin is, because what will happen is, like with Wall Street and Wall Street adoption, so Bitcoin is supposed to be this anti-Wall Street product, but it works and it's a good product with value. So of course Wall Street's going to get into it. And what happens when Wall Street gets into it? They bring the exact same practices that the product's meant to stop. Now, does that make the product bad? No, the mission's still there. I still have access to Bitcoin. They haven't made it like something where I have to go through Fidelity to buy it, right? Yet, right? So there's still that option. So any good product is going to, so of course, Bitcoin's going to be great for moving money. FTX was great for moving money. And now that that's been exposed, maybe podcasting is going to become a way. You know what I mean? Like there's always a way to move money. And that's always one of the arguments behind, these people say we need to get money out of our elections. We need to get money out of politics. No, because you can't.
You can't.
Right?
They'll just sneak it in.
I love the saying that it's like, we don't have corruption here. We just have lobbying. Right. Yeah. And that's absolutely true.
That's a nice way to put it. Right.
You just change the way money moves. The key is always, I guess, transparency, maybe, whatever transparency means, because FTX was transparent. FTX filed with all the states for their money transmitters and gave their reports, and you can't stop fraud, right? Yeah. You can't, because it's fraud. You lie. It doesn't matter what regulation you make.
Pull up those slides again to go through, because I want to ask them about a couple of them. Now, how has this affected like the mining, the mining part of it? Has this had an effect on the mining part of this?
So mining is proof of work, which is really only Bitcoin at this point. So to back up, mining is like when you're mining for gold. It takes real world energy, real world electricity costs to mine Bitcoin, right? Which is part of what makes it secure, is that it takes physical energy to get a hold of it and transact. It's not just on an Amazon AWS server.
Right.
Mining has to be profitable. What's hard in certain parts of America, like Florida, is energy prices have gone up and Bitcoin's price has gone down. So the break-even point for mining a Bitcoin for a giant mining operation has gotten harder. So it's affected the smaller miners. So it's a consolidation phase like anything else.
Right.
Right. And mining will consolidate over time.
So your mom and pop, like a mom and pop store, gets killed.
Correct.
But your big brands, Saks Fifth Avenue, shit like that are mining, they just write it off as a hit.
Correct.
Keep running with it.
Correct. So you have miners all over the country that, either are consolidating. But now what's interesting is, one of the benefits of the Wall Streetification is you can use your Bitcoin as collateral to take out a loan, right? So maybe if you're a miner and Bitcoin's 15K right now, but it's going to be 60K next year, can I use my Bitcoin to take out a loan and just pay off my expenses with this loan, knowing that I can sell my Bitcoin more in a year?
Yeah.
Right.
Go to the beginning, Rob, of this. All right.
The Satoshi phrase?
Yeah.
So that email is probably overlooked, and it's probably my favorite saying of his. You will not find a solution to political problems in cryptography, but we can win a major battle in the arms race and gain a new territory of freedom for several years. Not eternity, not forever, but for several years.
Temporarily, yeah.
Yep.
Governments are good at cutting off the heads of centrally controlled networks like Napster. That's a great example. But pure P2P networks like, how do you say that?
I think it's just Nutella.
Nutella.
G's probably silent.
I wasn't even going to try. Blank and Tor seem to be holding their own. Yeah, Tor's been around forever. So what's he saying right there?
Essentially everything I've been saying. So just that, once again,
it's not a solution to a problem. It's an alternative.
Like Bitcoin doesn't change people wanting to kill people.
Right.
Right. Like that's what Bitcoin, to its credit, has this cult around it. Cults aren't bad. Cults can be good when you're defending a product. Apple has cults, right? Amazon has cults of people who love the product, love the culture. I know people with Apple tattoos. I would never get a tattoo of a corporation. You have people with Marvel tattoos. I would never get a tattoo of Marvel, but people love that stuff, and they're dedicated. They know
Star Trek.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, and that can help create a good product. So you have people who are passionate about Bitcoin. They say, I'm orange-pilled, and I only vote based on Bitcoin, right? I've been told that a lot, which don't know how you operate. But that's okay. So that's great. That's great in one sense. But Bitcoin does not change human behavior. I mean, you could argue that sound money does actually change human incentives. And by sound money, I mean not fiat currency. So I could make the argument that a lot of the stuff that's coming out of these universities are from like these weird universities things where they're promoting, what is a woman, what is a child, stuff like that, weird kind of stuff. It's from these departments that don't make the university money, right? They're not profitable, but they're funded by the dollar, right? Because we're able to just print dollars and fund these universities. If you can't just print money, all that goes away. So there's something to be said that, of course, sound money will impact a culture and a civilization because you get rid of the excess.
Good point.
However, once again, that the people who are doing those things because the non-sound money, the fiat dollar, allows them to, they'd find another avenue if the money was hard, if the money was good, like Bitcoin. Maybe they wouldn't be so out there. There wouldn't be so many of them. They would be a minority. They wouldn't be in institutions like universities teaching people, right? The dynamic would be different. But those people weren't created because we have bad monetary policy. Those people are...
They're created. They just chose the fiat dollar or whatever to do whatever they're doing. So if that isn't there, they'll choose whatever, gold or silver.
Correct. It's
or
just
whatever.
like money movement.
Yeah.
People who want to be corrupt will find a way to be corrupt, right?
I think it's the third one, Rob. That one chart, not the one that we saw. I don't know if we came in.
Is it the tax one? The tax structure of FTX?
Go before that because we can't really see that.
The one that's not.
Yeah, we saw that one here. Yeah.
Oh, this was just, so this is documenting.
This is interesting.
This is documenting his travel. So SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, joins MIT. SBF and Gary, that's Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, meet. Graduates 2014. Or is it Gary Gensler? Yes, because it would have been MIT, correct. Graduates in 2015. No, Gary's not Gary Gensler. That's got to be someone else. What Gary is that? I actually don't even know. I guess Gary's the co-founder. SBF, Gary, and Nasheed found .com Silo.
While you think about who Gary is, so that Alameda,
that's the hedge fund.
That's the hedge fund.
Yes.
Whenever I hear hedge fund, I think, oh boy,
big bucks.
Big bucks, yeah.
Well, so they apparently got rich off of I think it was Bitcoin arbitrage between the prices in, I think, Japan and America.
So this goes back years.
What I was thinking of, Tommy?
What?
Remember that guy I told you?
Right there, look. Oh, Clint, I almost thought of sick.
And I don't know if Sam maybe knows somewhere along the line.
Oh, Gary Wang. Yeah, it's Gary Wang, the co-founder of Alameda.
I'm not going to mention any names, but
you're totally
remember that guy I told you about that I'm friends with, who has a friend who has all these expensive cars.
Yeah.
Crazy motherfucking cars, like
Yeah.
20 different cars. He was the one that came up with the card that converts whatever to whatever, sold it to FTX. FTX hired him for 6 figures to continue to work with them. I wonder if he has anything to do with any of this. Long story short, a friend,
This is a friend or a friend of a friend?
A friend of a friend. And actually, I don't even know the guy, swear to God. But he's got, I see him on Instagram, crazy-ass cars. When I'm talking, $1 million plus cars, and a lot of them. He sold, again, crypto stuff kind of goes over my head a little bit, but basically like a debit card that would say, okay, you have, 4 Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it
it
just converts it to cash.
And does all that. He sold that to FTX.
That tech, yeah.
And FTX kept him on board to continue to work while paying him 6 figures. I wonder if he has any connections to
Yeah, I mean, that was a big trend once again, trying to get adoption. Is now you have all these like crypto.com had a
You're
card.
reaching out to guys like that, right?
And it's like, nice, okay, so I can have Dogecoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum in my crypto.com wallet. I have a card, and anytime I swipe the card, what it really does is it just tells my bank account sell however much of this token to meet this balance.
And leaves a footprint.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Correct. But that's adoption, right? I want to be able to buy Publix groceries with Bitcoin or Dogecoin.
So break this down for me. This is interesting. Like, you got the fucking DARE Act in there.
Yeah, so
Meanwhile, they got the DARE
Gary
Act in there.
Wang.
Meanwhile, they're hustling the shit out of everybody.
Gary's Gary Wang, who's, I guess, the mysterious co-founder who's involved with a lot of this stuff. They meet at MIT. So really...
His name is probably Gary Smith.
It's just... So the Bahamas passed the DARE Act, which FTX essentially wrote that law, and it's what allowed FTX to operate in the Bahamas. What's interesting is in 2020, I had people telling me that Bahamas was going to be the next crypto capital.
Well, if they're writing laws, I mean...
Well, and so that's kind of the dream for a lot of these people is you find a small country and you have enough money, you buy all the government and you make it your own. So once again, technically what FTX did... we've seen happen before. I mean, look up the banana wars in Central America with Dole, right?
But here's what blows my mind. So you have July 21, FTX digital market is formed.
Mm-hmm.
In literally, 2 years or this happens? You got July 21,
Mm-hmm.
September they announce it. Now they're in headquarters in Miami.
Yep.
Then they're in Chicago. So in a matter of maybe 2.5 years at most, maybe even less.
It's quick.
All that.
And what's even crazier is their valuation. How quickly they became a multi-billion-dollar company, right? And really it happened from that 2020 to 2022 time period.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So how does that happen, Sam?
Well,
We don't know.
no, we do.
I'm
you
saying,
can track
like, we
the
don't know.
investment. You can you can track who invested in those Series A, Series Bs. He was also a poster child, right? Everyone was like, "Oh, this is the guy. He knows his stuff. This is a product you got to get in on," right? And so every hedge fund in the world goes, "Okay, I don't want to lose out." I mean, it's like with Enron, right? It's like with what was the lady who went to jail over the blood samples? She just got sentenced like 11 years.
Oh, yeah.
What's her name?
I knew you were talking.
She's got crazy eyes.
This reminds me more of Enron, though. How
Yeah,
Enron
correct.
worked.
But
Yeah, I knew a lot of those.
how many times do we see this happen where you got to invest in it? Well, I don't understand it. Yeah, but you got to do it.
And then you have a gazillion people that have no idea what they're doing. They don't understand the key.
Correct.
A lot of them have a lot of money. They think this is a safe place, and then they get fucked.
I mean, what's scary is it's not even really that scary. It's
Well,
just
that
how
chart's pretty
normal it
wicked.
is, right?
Yeah, that chart's pretty wicked.
Now, in your opinion, do you think we'll hear some big names involved with this that will go down, or do you think it's just going to be just like anything else?
We've already heard big names. We've already heard plenty of big names go down.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, there's a class action lawsuit. I saw Tom Brady, the other stars are getting sued. I don't really get how you can sue someone or for advertising for a company that then, like, once again, it's fraud. So they're not honest to anybody, right? Like, how is Tom Brady responsible for not doing his due diligence that's not even available because they're cooking the books and hiding the numbers?
So the problem I see here is you would say, well, and even I said it until we started talking thicker about this. So, you think Tom Brady, he's got $1 gazillion, right? I had to give some to the ex, even though she had more than him. But, and Curry and the rest. But the money that they have isn't shit compared to what these guys have.
Correct.
Not at all.
So initially you think, well, they hit Tom Brady, they hit these celebrities, they're going down. But they have way more money. And
so they'll be safer than the celebrities.
Yeah. And they could just do a little sneak thing. Hey, Tom, he goes out to his mailbox one day, say they took $20 million, here's $40 million. You know what I mean? Cashes it, never says a word, so do the others. What's $1 billion to these guys? Nothing.
Yeah.
They go away. Now you got the celebrities off the table. Sam gets a little mental, he goes into
mental health clinic.
Mental health clinic, pleads insanity. Does 6 months on a beach and back into life and helps the government supposedly with whatever and goes and lives a happy life and doesn't get whacked or anything else.
I mean, look at the guy from WeWork. Did you ever follow that?
Yeah.
Knowingly defrauded people, and then you just become so rich off the fraud, you're now an investor, and people are like, will you please invest in my company? And I think he just landed off of some new project that people are going to invest in. I love looking at the history of hedge funds or people who manage hedge funds, and you'll just see 500 million failed, raised another one, 750 failed, raised another one, 2.5 billion. You're like, they're growing and they keep failing, but he's getting more money each time. You're like, man, failing's a good strategy, I guess, if you want to get rich.
I went down this hedge fund, rabbit hole for a while there.
Yeah.
And every one of them, even Madoff, I think they initially had no bad intentions. I don't.
But the money gets to you and you just take extra risk. And
yeah, you're good at what you do. So initially there's no fraud, there's no nothing, you're doing the right thing. But then you have piles and piles of people coming at you because say you come to me, Rob comes to me, 10 other people, I know what I'm doing, bam, I just made you 10 million, him 10 million. I just made people $1 billion. Now everybody's coming. But that billion I made legit. But now I'm in over my head because now I've taken in 500 different people within my hedge fund.
Yep.
Now I'm paying Paul to pay Peter. Not at that point, I'm not doing that spitefully. It's just I have all these people and I have to pay out and this didn't come in yet. And then more people are coming and you don't want to turn it down because this guy's got $250 million, this guy's got $100 million. And next thing you know, you're just in over your head and now you're in a Ponzi scheme. Subconsciously end up in a Ponzi scheme that you really can't get out of.
Yeah.
I guess. Do you think that some big name politicians, whether it's a president, an ex-president, a senator, a former senator, that may be involved with this, will go down or
no,
not?
Absolutely not.
No. Yeah, no.
No,
What are you thinking, Rob?
I gotta.
What's
ask.
Rob thinking?
I gotta ask.
I used to always, the safest thing you can do if you're a criminal is run for office, right? And there are people who have done that, who have been charged and who have run for office and won, and it is a way to get immunity. If you're in the middle of an election and it comes out that you should be in jail, you better double down on that election, buddy, right? And if you win, you're good. Right. It's very hard now we see corruption all the time in Congress, corruption, whatever that word means. Right. Are they breaking laws? Are they not?
Isn't it more, Sam, now?
They make the laws.
Who is it? Who is the person? And then we'll decide if it's corruption or not, right?
One of my favorite quotes, I think it was G.K. Chesterton.
Oh, I read that one.
Yeah, in America, you can get all the freedom you can afford, right?
So true.
And it's absolutely true.
If you make the laws, man.
It's absolutely true. And,
what is the best example? Pfizer. They kill millions and millions of people. What happens? They go in, they pay $40 billion, $50 billion, even though they made $500 billion off whatever drug they killed people with. Go back out. change the molecules, kill another fucking 20 million people, back into court again, another 100 billion, back out. How many times have they been in court?
Slap on the wrist, fine. I mean, that was always the joke in my beginning crypto days when the Silk Road was still a topic for Bitcoin and people were talking about its use for criminal activity. And then you'd see a headline, Wells Fargo busted for allowing drug cartels to have money in their banks, pays fine, 10 million. And you're like, what? Yeah. Right? $10 million. And we're like, and the fraud, the criminal activity for the drug cartels was in the multi-millions. It would sometimes be triple what was ever on Silk Road.
You say to yourself, who's the cartel again?
Great question. Yeah.
Who's the really the cartel?
I know. So it is. It's all just, and that's why I was so fascinated and like bullish on this FTX stuff, just like in my own mind. I'm like, man, it's corrupt. But man, he's doing exactly what everyone else is doing. He's doing what every bank would do, whatever Wall Street financial firm's doing. He's donating to political campaigns. People owe him favors. He's making all the right ends, right? The question every politician has to answer is between loyalty, what their own skin in the game is, and public perception. If you can control public perception and you can kind of make people feel like, oh, well, you shouldn't have put your money there. It's your fault. You're stupid, right? We'll pass some bill. My biggest fear is that they do a Dodd-Frank for crypto, because Dodd-Frank did what? It killed all the small banks, right? Yeah. It was not anti-bank. It was anti-small bank, right? Yeah. They could do that for crypto and create barriers to entry that the big guys are happy to oblige, but now the small guys are like, well, can't do business. Regulatory hurdles too high. You know, that could happen. That's probably my biggest fear. But, you know, it's all about public perception. So if the public 3 months from now totally forgets about all of this, which there's a good chance, right? It's hot right now, but it's holiday season, right? Yeah. January's coming up, the new year, new quarter. We're apparently about to get hit by a recession. That'll be bad. FTX will be the least on everyone's mind when the housing market goes up, right? And so then we'll see 6 months from now, oh, Sam's in solitary confinement for a day because he got mental health issues or what. You know what I'm talking about? He's got to go to an island in the Bahamas and get hurt. And
this podcast is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go to www.expressvpn.com, use code MSCS, and get 20% off your order.
VPN is a power tool for your devices that enhances the internet. With it, you can do 3 really cool things. 1. Watch movies and TV from any of your devices, fast and securely. 2. You can use parts of the internet that are blocked in certain countries. 3. You can keep your internet traffic private, even when you're on an unsecured public network.
That's www.expressvpn.com. Use the code MSCS at checkout and get 20% off your order. So I'm with you on the exchange. Like, I fully understand that.
Yeah.
Right? So I see how that happened. But what about the NFT? What about the Web3? NFT lost a ton of money. They got hacked. Web3 got hacked.
Yeah, so NFTs, once again, what is an NFT? An NFT is a digital stamp.
That one I'll never understand.
No, you will. You'll understand it right now. So I make a piece of digital art. Technically, anyone can screenshot that and say it's mine.
Let's start with this. You make a piece of digital art and it's Michael Jordan.
Sure. So I take a photo of this can, right?
Monster.
And I put Monster on my Instagram, but because it's this background, like this photo that I take can never be replaced, I call it art. And somehow that photo, because society's cool, is valued at $1,000.
But that's Monster. That's a copyright.
Sure. So maybe don't use the can. Use something that not copyrighted, like this pot.
I want to go to the copyright shit.
So copyright, I'll get to that. But just for the general NFT concept,
sure.
Right? So I take a picture of this, right? If that's worth $1,000, someone can screenshot that, lie and say, that's actually my photo, sell it to someone without me even knowing, and now there's counterfeit, right? It's the same reason Bitcoin's a limited supply. So how do I make digital art limited? Well, I find a unique stamp, I stamp it and say, unless you have this unique stamp, how do you do the unique stamp? You turn it into an Ethereum token. And the Ethereum token has that hash that I was talking about. That's that long string of letters, and that's the stamp. That's an NFT. That's it. It's that stamp. So where it gets complicated is, well, a lot of these NFTs are minted on exchanges where there's no private key that you're holding. So once again, if the exchange can get hacked, the NFT can get stolen, right?
So all the NFT hacks were because
Normally
Bored
exchanges.
Ape got hacked.
Exactly.
The fucking yacht guy got hacked.
Correct.
Well, what's the safest one for NFT?
Technically, you could argue none of them because they're all built on Ethereum and it's all being held on exchanges,
Okay.
right? So I don't know if there's any NFT that you can claim can't be hacked. I'm not aware that I can put an NFT on like a hardware wallet that I was talking to you about with Bitcoin, because these are two different blockchains. Ethereum's now proof of stake, not proof of work, which has all the mining and stuff. So that argument, yeah, NFTs are pretty hackable. And people who trade and do NFTs, it's all on exchange, right? So real easy target.
So that NFT, right, the picture you just took of that pot right there, that becomes, is that a one of one?
It depends. So it's supposed to be. So what I can do is I can take a picture of that and I can say this is a one of one, or I can take a photo of that, write some code, and say I want to print 1,000 of these.
Okay.
But there's one detail in each one that's different.
Yeah.
Or I could say 15. That's what the Bored Apes are. That's what the CryptoPunks are. Is they program the NFTs and say, here's the general layout. Now this algorithm's going to pump out 1,000. They're each going to be a little bit unique and different. And we're just going to give them value, right? So that is like fiat value. So where Bored Apes got a lot of their value was from the genius of what's the guy's
Bathing
name?
Ape.
Who?
I thought like the Bathing Ape clothing line.
No, it was from Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh,
That's how you
Gary
say his
V?
last name?
Gary V.
Yeah,
Gary V.
Yeah.
What Gary V did is he got into the Bored Apes and he really made them a social symbol,
I'm sure. he
social
does.
status. So now it's like any trading card. Oh, let me see your Bored Ape. There were parties in Miami last year during Art Basel. You could only get in if you had a Bored Ape.
They
And
just
this
got
Art
hacked.
Basel's like this week.
They just got hacked to their balls off.
Correct.
And what you're saying is like the plastic cells. Like I collect them.
Yep.
Like, so when he came out, that was $350, right? But they only made 100,
Okay.
$4,000. This one, when it came out, $350. Not that one, but the one that came out before that Tupac, $8,000.
So why is it 8,000?
Because they only made 100.
Okay, but so limited supply
Limited
dictates.
supply, handmade.
But
yeah.
still, there has to be demand for it.
Yeah, demand.
If no one's going to buy that.
But the difference between those and an NFT is they went to Joe Rogan and said, hey, we're going to make 100. They went to Tupac's mother. We're going to make 100. They went to Biggie's mom. We're going to make 100. With the NFTs, you're just taking Jordan and making money. For anyone to think that at some point in time, they're not going to get buried is nuts. You're copywriting like hell.
Correct. So there are NFT lawyers who...
They better be good.
They're very good. And some of them are inventing products specifically around this problem to say, this is a patent, this is a copyright, this is a trademark. You can't do this. Or if you do, this is how you make it work, right? The other reason NFTs are supposed to be useful is provenance. Are you familiar with that term, provenance? So provenance is...
You get like benefits, like front
no,
row
provenance
seats.
is previous ownership.
Just a minute.
Or tracking of ownership,
Okay.
right? So sometimes what makes something useful, like if you told me that Joe Rogan owned that exact one, its value goes up. If before Joe Rogan owned it, Obama owned it, or Trump owned it, or... I don't know, name someone cool.
Rogan
right?
does own that one, but just not the number that I have.
Not the number, but if you own the number.
Why not? Number
Right. So what artists do is they track the provenance. So, you know, the Mona Lisa maybe at one point was owned by a king or a queen. That gives it value. Yeah. NFTs, because it's on a blockchain, you can track that provenance.
So
right.
look,
and that's really important. 29
of 100.
29 of 100. No one important has owned 29. That's like the most useless one.
but then I would argue your point.
I think Tupac is number 2. So shut up.
I would argue your point. I know you're talking about. You're saying if Michael Jordan, right? But if an artist, Picasso, I don't know, famous artist. Sorry, art people. Let's just say Picasso was around and had Michael Jordan in front of him, or saw a basketball card with Michael Jordan on, and painted the same picture that's on the thing and then sold that.
Well, what about Andy Warhol with the Campbell's soup can?
Correct. So,
but that's an Andy Warhol original. Did Campbell's soup ever sue him?
No.
Art law and parody law are all really weird. That was like, there's a show called Nathan For You. You familiar? Nathan For You is this really cringe guy who comes up with the stupidest business solutions for people who buy into it. So one of them was this realtor is like, I need help selling homes. And he's like, you're going to sell ghost-free homes, right? You're going to get a certified exorcist to check your homes, and you're going to advertise and be like, this home is verified ghost-free, just to give people extra comfort. Like, they're stupid ideas.
I bet it works.
So what he did was he opened a restaurant called like fake Starbucks or not Starbucks, but everything was the exact same. And he did it all under parody law, to where it's like, oh, it's a parody because it's not Starbucks, but everything was the exact same. The uniforms, the logo, whatever.
It's like the Weird Al Yankovic. He would use the songs, but he would sing his own lyrics.
Correct.
Remember Weird
Yeah,
Al?
yeah.
So he was able to get rid of it, and he actually became far more successful. What's super funny is I think the lawyer he hired didn't actually read the contract, which was funny because he calls him out on it. He's like, well, you're the lawyer. You're supposed to read and the contract says that he has full liability if Starbucks sues or whatever. So he just does these like stupid business pranks that are hilarious on the show and very cringeworthy. But so if it's an NFT, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know where the boundary between creative art and trademarks and copyrights come in. Obviously, if you just take a picture of a Monster can and it makes value, of course Monster's going to sue you, right? What that outcome is, I don't know. Like, was Andy Warhol sued by Campbell's? I have no clue. But now that's one of the most famous. What's the value of that Andy Warhol Campbell's soup can, right? NFTs, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So the same questions that you have is like, why the hell is this even valuable? It's like, well, why is most art valuable anyway? I used to always joke that Art Basel is like the largest money laundering convention in the United States,
go like
right?
this with a paintbrush, $2 million.
Yep.
Okay, little Johnny, come on. You're the high bidder with cash. Come on.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You find you get an appraiser, you get an artist, you pay the artist, you pay the appraiser, then you buy it, then you donate it to a charity, to a museum, and there's the wash.
And then the other $10 million that you spent, you put in your pocket, or that you sold. I'm sorry.
So NFTs, maybe they just make money laundering easier, and that's just natural, right?
What about Web3? Because that got hit too.
So Web3 is a weird term, and by the way, apparently now outdated. People are saying Web 5, which is Web 2 plus Web 3, and then there's Web 7.
Yeah, I heard
people,
that's what I heard.
People trying to be real cool.
Yeah.
My buddy was like, "I'm on Web 99, bitch." Like he's like, "You can't touch me."
Oh yeah. Just wait a little bit.
Like Web 3 is supposed to stand for the decentralized web,
Right.
but then things like the metaverse or NFTs are called Web 3, but NFTs are not necessarily decentralized. The metaverse is not necessarily decentralized. So Web 3 to me is just what's cool and new, right? Like Bitcoin would probably be the first thing that's Web 3, but when people think of Bitcoin, they don't think Web 3. They think of the stuff
Web
that's
3
more
is
fun.
built on the blockchain though, right?
I guess, I mean, that's not the strict definition. There's Web3 stuff that might not be blockchain that's centralized. I mean, I don't think you need the blockchain for NFTs. I don't think you need the blockchain for the metaverse.
But don't you need it for Web3?
That's a good question. Define Web3. If the definition of Web3, it has to be blockchain, then I guess by definition.
Yeah.
But I see tons of people for marketing say their stuff's Web3.
So it's all a mind fuck.
Yeah.
It's all gaslight.
I mean, it's like in 2017, I knew people who were saying they have a blockchain project and they never actually used blockchain, right? Or they had a blockchain in their name, but it was just a regular database.
All I know is that a lot of people have come in here and said that Web3 is unhackable and it's the decentralized, blah, 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 and they got their ass taken from them.
And I would agree, like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like with NFTs, like, are NFTs Web3? Sure. But I just described how easy it is to hack into an NFT. Just hack into OpenSea.
Yeah.
Right? So once again, it's people just falling for the marketing. I know the Bitcoin blockchain has not been hacked. every other blockchain, every other Web3 platform, if it's an exchange, if it's a metaverse, if it's a token, if it's an NFT, yeah, they're all hackable. If it's on Amazon AWS or you use any cloud service, you can get hacked. I'm sorry, but it's very likely if it's a cloud provider that you're using, you can get hacked.
And I was reading that that's how Bitcoin could get hacked.
It's through what?
The cloud. If you use the wallet that's in the cloud, basically like
so
you were
the wallet,
saying,
the wallet could get hacked, but not the Bitcoin blockchain.
Correct. That
yeah, absolutely.
Because I read the different ways it could be hacked, and one is the cloud, like on the wallet on the cloud, anything on the cloud, like you just said.
One of the things that some of these wallets were doing using like zero knowledge proofs was like they store information in the cloud, but it's jumbled and only useful if it can communicate with your phone. So if someone hacks into the cloud, it's useless data and it needs to be connected with your phone. I forget what that term's called, but you can do it with your computer.
Yeah, you made a very good point. When I was reading about it before you came in, they said that the number one way that Bitcoin would get hacked would be through the phone.
Yeah, because you can SIM hack. I know people. I have a friend. I feel terrible for her, but she was SIM hacked like 3 months ago, and they drained her Bitcoin. I'm scared of that shit all the time. And
it's easy to do. It's called brute force. That's all it is.
Correct. And that's why, I took all my stuff off my phone.
And then if you have brute force, all that person needs to know is what tower you're hitting. And whenever you're not on Wi-Fi, it's just taking your shit.
Yep. That's why.
Or God forbid they do know what Wi-Fi you're connected to. Then it's just it's a 10-minute process or however, you know what I mean?
That's why I do the Google Authenticator. I don't do text messaging authentication. Yeah. You don't or Microsoft or some third party.
Microsoft. What are you, crazy?
But it's supposed to live on your
phone. You want to die?
You know the reason I know
Bill
it lives
Gates
on
owns
your phone.
it. You want to die? He's trying to kill you. If you've been in a cave, he's trying to kill you.
I am trying to die. So maybe that's the best way to do it. Maybe that's my one way out. Thanks, Bill Gates.
What if you kept living your life over and over again until you got it right? What if when you died, you lived the same life over? Why is everybody so scared to live their life? Like, do you want to live forever?
No.
Do you want to live your life again?
No.
Why?
Well, I'm biased because I'm a Christian. I believe in heaven, so I am perfectly okay with dying and living in eternity.
Yeah, we're just playing devil advocate.
That's okay. If that doesn't exist and I have to like live on this earth, can I at least pick the year?
No.
It has to be the same
year. You got to keep
year.
reliving it until you do it right. However the hierarchy may work.
Right. What does that mean? Do what right?
Whatever you're put here to do. Whatever reason it is that
if
you're here
you're
for.
put here to do it, whatever that is.
Whatever your calling is.
Whatever you're calling it. Hopefully, whatever you're called to do, you almost have to do it because you're called to. So by definition, wouldn't you get that right the first time?
No, because it would go into your subconscious.
What if I'm called to be a McDonald's guy, which I will be after this FTX crash? What if that's my calling? And God's like, you thought you were supposed to run a successful Web3 advocacy firm, but you are a fry cook, Sam. I'm like, damn, I've avoided that calling my whole life. Now I'm back at it. I'm happy. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. One life is enough, isn't it?
Maybe.
I was just talking to a guy the other day about Google giving that one guy that blank check to just do research on how to live forever. I don't know. Something's off about these people who want to upload their brain to the internet so they can live forever. I find it. I don't know if it's right.
No.
Yeah. I don't. If we were meant to live forever, we would live forever.
Correct.
So obviously that's not meant to be,
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like if they're able to upload your consciousness to a server to live forever, they're just going to use it to torture you, right?
Yeah. all the rich people are doing it. All like the billionaires, they've uploaded all their shit. Of course, Gates did. We were just talking about him. Buffett did.
Where do they upload it?
Server, just like a server that
Google owns.
I would hope not, but they probably are in the.
How do you
cahoots.
hack into that server?
Well,
what do you get?
Well,
like his brain DNA, like the code, genetic code. Like what is that?
That's that shit that they do on some fucking island that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
And he goes under, Tim Smith, and whatever they do, they do. Who the hell knows?
I just wonder if they can bring back Walt Disney. He's still frozen, isn't he?
Probably one day.
He's frozen.
Is he frozen?
Yeah, they froze him.
Did they freeze him?
I'm almost
Man, am I a
Can you Google
Floridian
that
and I
stuff?
didn't know they froze Walt Disney?
That would be interesting. Well, if he is, one day we'll probably be able to bring him back if they froze his ass.
Or clone
And
him.
he's going to say, what the fuck
I think
is
they're
going
already
on?
cloning now. I was
They
telling
can clone animals for sure.
Yeah, we've seen that. Pigs, mice.
Yeah.
They're cloning people.
I lied.
100. What's that?
He's not frozen?
Nah, what the fuck? How come I was told that he's frozen?
Let's just
I'm
say
glad
he
we
is.
checked
That's
it
way
out.
cooler.
Right? Yeah.
He's actually in like the giant Epcot, whatever that ball is. He's in the middle of their frozen.
According to, here, I'll just pull it up.
Sources say.
According to the, what is this? What the fuck happened to it? There it is. Fact checked. False claim that Walt Disney's frozen body will be thawed in December. Well, December maybe not. What is it?
I don't think I believe Mackenzie.
Pop culture a myth that his current frozen body corpse is stored away in a hidden vault. Over the years, the legend has taken different forms. His body is located on the Pirates of Caribbean ride. I did not think that though. I didn't think that.
It's frozen. So stories about his frozen head. Dad is elite.
Fact check.
Where does it say though? Fact check. That's not it. It said up here though that he was cremated. I don't know.
That's like the new thing I keep seeing is that Helen Keller either wasn't real or that she wasn't actually like deaf, dumb, and blind.
That's a good one. What do you think about that? Do you think?
I mean,
okay.
kind of like this Walt Disney stuff. I'm pretty okay with believing he is secretly frozen. So I think I'm okay with believing Helen Keller wasn't real.
But do you think you can be? So you think she wasn't real?
I saw this bumper sticker that says Helen Keller ain't no way. And it's got like the red thing through it. Purely for comedic purposes, I'd like to believe that.
But in real life, you think
it is weird. How are you deaf, blum, and
I agree.
and blind, and you learn how to read and write and
say Wawa water? Yeah, I don't know.
Is that really what she said?
Yeah, Wawa.
And said water? She couldn't say water?
She instead of saying water, she said Wawa. And that's why I think Wawa became Wawa.
If you talk to Graham Hancock, he would tell you that she's on a different level and whatever phase it is, and she can do telepathic sound, vibrations, all that shit.
Damn, that's just as cool as
he proved that with the pyramids. He proved it. He had to hold on to that information for 7 years so that the government wouldn't mess with it. So they built a whole facility where they can do like really accurate readings and everything. And, they found bone. They found that people were cooking fish 1.4 million years ago.
In the pyramids? Or
yeah, right in Egypt, in the pyramid. There was prior to that, like Egypt is wherever Egypt is, whatever this shit is, and there's like this little lake in between there.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, it wasn't there before, but it is now after one of the ice ages, and everything had to go through that lake. It just had to. So when they started pulling out artifacts from it, it takes forever to test it and get down to the bottom of it. They were all on massive amounts of psychedelics and everything else, which,
But you think you can be blind and deaf
mm-hmm.
and be able to speak?
If you have telepathy, then yes.
How?
Telepathy.
Telepathically.
Like, I can get behind that. But if telepathy doesn't exist, then I guess she's just not real.
Well, the reason why Graham thinks it exists is because with all the artifacts that they had found, tested with the data, like this isn't like him saying it. There's data behind it. You know what I mean? Factual data, third party, fifth party, 10 party testing, blah, blah, blah. And within that, with his conclusion of the pyramids, let's just stick with that part, was that the way that they were built and the only way that they could have been built, 70-ton fucking rocks, 30,000 feet in the air, like 10 of them all around. There's even one in Mexico,
But there's actually that you've seen this straight line,
and it's within 1 degree of the North Pole. It's
aligns with Orion's
yeah,
belt.
It's more accurate than anything we have today. It's more accurate than any satellite in space. Okay, and his conclusion was that we went this technology route. Cell phones, this shit, whatever. They went more with nature, universe, earth, all is one. Self is one, universe is
like
one.
The difference between magic and technology, right?
Yeah, like more in touch with earth. Like everything is one. Like the universe is one.
So they tapped into that.
So we think, okay, let's just say we were here 6,000 years. Look how far we've come from 1900s to 2000. I mean, crazy difference. Imagine having 100,000 years of time to evolve, blah, 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 blah. It is not out of characteristic to think that they couldn't use telepathic, technology in that way, vibration. I said this the other day, but if you put a razor with a battery in it on this table, it's going to move.
Yeah.
Well, if you have 100,000 years to play with that, why is it unconceivable to believe that you couldn't move a 70-pound stone with vibration and sound and telepathic? And how in the hell could you align it that perfectly without using telepathic? If you can answer that one, how?
I don't know.
I know Tesla said everything's vibration, right?
Yeah, and they sealed Tesla's writings. The government sealed his writings for a long time, and all of his writings that they sealed were about telepathic and vibration and sound. And if you have those three, then time doesn't exist. And if time doesn't exist, you can do anything. We know time as 24 hours in the day because the earth goes around the sun. But you don't know how people may have thought if they were here for 100,000 years straight before they either got out of here, maybe they shot to the Milky Way, most likely. Looks like that's probably where they probably went. We can't see. Or wherever, or they just got rocked. One of the two.
So they either left us behind or were devolving.
Probably, I think they know that there was a lot of different civilizations, so I think some got whacked out, totally wiped out, and I think some got out of here.
It's the great filter theory that Elon talks about. Are you familiar with that?
Nah, Elon,
Great filter is just civilizations reach a peak and then something happens.
Yeah.
And they either advance beyond whatever this filter is or they don't. And it's one of the reasons why scientifically some people don't believe in life on other planets, because it is so statistically possible that there is life, that the fact that we haven't been contacted is so abnormal that their belief is maybe there's intelligent life, but they can't get past this filter. And no one knows what this filter is. Some people think it's nuclear development. Maybe it's something else. But whatever that filter is, advanced civilizations or universes or worlds can't make it past it to then go and explore. Right? So it's like, what is that filter?
Well, the other thing that they believe with facts is frequencies. A lot was with frequencies.
That's same as vibration, right? Do you consider them the same or different?
Different, because vibration can move things very easily. So can frequency, but frequency more as in relating to the telepathic. Because say you put your radio station on 92.1 and it's clear. Mm-hmm. 92.2, you can still hear 92.1 a little bit, but you're also hearing part of 92.3. So if you just think of that as like a frequency, and then telepathically how that can go in the middle, like you're in the middle of the frequency. You're not on this end or that end, you're right in the middle of the frequency. And when you think about that in an extremely complex fucking out there way, that's how telepathic.
Well, would that be your instinct thing? Because can't dogs hear on a different frequency? And they hear that whistle when you blow, and we don't hear anything. Yeah. And they hear this high pitch, it hurts their ears. That they're still that instinct.
Because they never got, like we were talking about in the beginning, they never got desensitized. They've always kept their instinct. Like bears, dogs, cats are the weirdest ones.
So what's interesting is my buddy's dad has hearing problems. And it's not uncommon for when older people have hearing problems, their hearing actually just simply changes. So for a while, he lives out in the desert, he would just be really uncomfortable and act weird and just kind of going a little crazy. And it was because he's like, you just don't hear that. You don't hear that. What they found out was what he could hear is the 5G towers that they planted nearby. that was at a frequency that for some reason now, because his hearing's bad, he could actually hear the tower, and it was just bothering him. It was driving him insane that he could hear the tower. So he would sometimes, like, he would hate going to cities, but he would sometimes just need to leave and go somewhere where he wouldn't hear the tower, right?
Think about it. In that desert, he's in touch with only nature.
Yeah.
Right? And that fucking 5G tower, they tried to use that to spread COVID. That's what that was all about.
But
and
no one else could hear
buried
it.
everybody.
No one else could hear it. Only he could hear it.
Yeah.
Like even his wife. But because he has bad hearing. And that's so, I find stuff like that so interesting.
But if you just take that and hold on to that, the guy's got bad hearing, but he could hear that.
Yeah.
He's in nature.
So is it bad hearing?
Is it bad hearing? Right? No, it's probably that he's within nature, oneself, so on and so forth. I don't know.
So is technology corrupting us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I
Did
read.
you really just asked me that?
I read.
Jeez. My God, yeah.
I read one of these threads on Twitter, which I really just got to stop going through these threads. But it was talking about how there's a huge similarity between the way computer chips are designed and the way ancient demonic symbols to summon demons were designed. So the belief is that actually we are spiritual and that what we know as technology is just magic in a different realm. And that's where kind of the Black Mirror stuff comes in, is that, you know, when you're staring into your phone, it's looking back at you, that this is actually a harnessed, it's not AI, it's a harnessed spirit, right? Which is why when you break open a phone, there's a weird amount of smoke and stuff like that. My buddy did that. He like just broke his phone with a sledgehammer just because he was done with it. And he's like, it was weird. It smoked up my whole neighborhood. Like, he was like, that was like 3 or 4 houses down. There was smoke. He's like, what the hell did I break? Like, I didn't just break a phone. I just broke a little mini dimension or something, right? And something like the crazier things get in the world. I'm like, is that true? I'm like, I wish I hadn't have read that because that sounds pretty cool and
then you
just
wonder, like,
true enough.
Was it only him that saw it, or did other people see it? Because I would believe him more if he was the only one that saw it. where in everyday civilization you would say, well, I would only believe it if 10 other people saw it.
Yep.
But after talking to these geniuses that have destroyed my mind, right now I'm like, well, if he only saw it, then I believe him.
From now, so what I say now is anytime someone's like source, I'm like, my dreams. The only source I need, baby, is when I go to bed at night. That's where I heard it, my dreams. That's the best source.
Pull up tab 9. So what are you doing now with the Florida Blockchain Association?
So right now what we're doing is we're actually looking at promoting legislation next session. So there's a few things that we're going to be doing and looking at.
You want us to click on anything?
No, so you can actually leave this up because none of what I'm going to tell you is published yet. But we're looking at legislation that would maybe allow banks to custody digital assets, right?
What does that mean? I'm sorry. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so banks, financial institutions are, especially if they're state chartered, are limited in what they can hold. Like gold, dollars, stocks, bonds.
Because of insurance?
I don't know if it's because of insurance, but there's legal requirements about what assets they can hold on to. Technically, there's certain regulations where banks could, if they wanted to, hold Bitcoin, but sometimes they want state regulation just saying, hey, if you're a state chartered bank, you know, this is safe. Right? No one's going to come after you. So what would be cool is if banks can hold, say, for example, Bitcoin, and then when you're doing escrow, right, they have what are called good funds, which you can only escrow what's listed in those good funds, right? That doesn't mean you have to, but you can't normally go outside of those good funds. If I can make it so Bitcoin's a good fund and I can allow banks to custody digital assets, you could technically buy a piece of real estate in Florida in Bitcoin without ever having to go to cash, ever. So the escrow company could transfer the Bitcoin, the bank could hold the Bitcoin, and then you could do everything in Bitcoin, which would be pretty cool for adoption reasons, right? There's more complicated stuff around like the biggest problem with FTX is who owns the custody of those tokens, right? Does FTX own it because they have the private key? But is it implied or inferred that the user still owns them? So there's legislation through the Uniform Law Commission that's coming out that kind of addresses that through the Uniform Commercial Code, which is just all the states try to abide by the Uniform Commercial Code, right? Which just makes it so that commerce, so that if you're Amazon, you don't have to, each state, you don't have to have a special law, right? We try to be uniform.
That'd be a nightmare.
Correct. So that's what the Uniform Commercial Code does. So like there's a Uniform Commercial Code, Article 12, that has to do with cryptocurrency that's being updated that will hopefully pass this legislative session. I'm not even going to talk about that, but that essentially has to do with like custodying and ownership of digital assets.
Now, being that you're going and this is with banks, right? What kind of kickback or feedback are you getting? Because now you're taking something that the government has no control of, no touching of, and now dealing with the banks that are involved with the government.
I've talked to the banks. They're fine with it.
But I'm saying like the people, citizens that like Bitcoin because it's not touched by banks or anything like that.
So once again, two principles. One, adoption and comfort, right? So that and just operating a business. So if you want to operate, it's like if you want to be a citizen in America, you have to have a social security number, right? I know people who have tried to not give their children social security numbers, right? And that's like my parents' background, like that's where their communities come from. But if you can't pay taxes, you literally can't operate as a citizen in the United States. So you have to fold into the United States and you have to get a social security number. So if you're a business that's wanting to deal with Bitcoin, by definition, you have to have a bank account and you have to have an EIN, right? So as far as commerce and business goes, they're going to love it, right? Because it means that businesses that are focused on digital assets, Web3, cryptocurrency, can now start opening up these avenues to where if they have to use banks, which a lot of them do, or they have to use financial services and escrow certain things, that's opening up avenues to where they can have regulatory compliance while using these products like Bitcoin, right?
So me personally, this is the one and only thing that I would like the government to get involved in is Bitcoin. I would feel safer messing with it. But in my opinion, if you do that, then Bitcoin is no different than anything else. Right now, maybe it is, but...
Also, once again, you're right and wrong. You're right in that it's becoming uniform. It's becoming adopting. But once again, no one, in my opinion, no one can control it. So we're learning how to regulate an asset and use an asset that nobody can control.
But if you go to a bank and the bank is involved, the bank can control it because the bank can say, well, today you can only take out $2,000 or you can only take out $1,000 or you can only spend $5,000.
That can be true in certain circumstances, although there are exchanges that do multi-sig services where essentially you have them hold it, but you still have your private key, right? And so they don't have total control. You still have that private key, which is good.
But now we're out of the. But you're talking.
But you
about
could
out
still
of the
have.
banks.
But
I'm talking about dealing with the banks. If you're dealing with the banks, they're going to be able to control that.
So the only reason I said that was you could see relationships where certain banks say we're going to adopt that model to get that customer base. But yes, it's still going to be a trade-off. You're going to trade off the security and safety of a bank instead of being rug pulled by an FTX. Right. But you're always going to have people who are like, no, I hate banks. I don't want anything to do with banks. That's more the individual. And that's perfectly okay. No one's going to force anyone to use a bank for their Bitcoin, right? So it's almost just extending the option and making it easier for commerce and, adoption, whatever that word means. But the fundamentals of Bitcoin won't change.
So you don't think that if 10 banks buy into this, that the rest of the banks aren't, and within a short amount of time, it's controlled?
No, because the way they would control Bitcoin essentially is trying to buy up as much of it as possible, which would inflate the price. The problem is they're late to the game, so they're going
really late.
Yeah,
I can't believe they haven't done anything.
Correct. I mean, and in fact, they're going the alternate route. Like they're developing. They're trying to develop their own digital dollars, right? And the banks are actually worried more than anybody about a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. Because if I have an app on my phone that's tied directly to the Federal Reserve, why do I need a bank? right? So then what do the banks become? So that relationship's interesting. So there's so many different conflicting interests sometimes when it comes to these banks, when they're thinking strictly from a business perspective. Like we have this whole new asset class of digital assets. And there's so much money in it now that, of course, banks are eventually going to want a piece of that. But the industry, a lot of these people, once again, the original Bitcoin mission of anarchists and screw the federal government, now it's just a good product that a lot of people are like, well, actually, I just view this as an avenue to make money. Don't really care about the mission, right? There's a lot of people out there like that, and that's perfectly okay. And they want the relationship with the bank, right? So Bitcoin is just a technology, right? And it can be used for good. It can be used for bad. And it can be used by a bank, or it can be used by someone who freaking hates banks and will escape to Venezuela or Argentina. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So adoption does not change the underlying asset. If anything, it just allows more people to buy it, which I could argue drives up price, which continues to bring new wealth to those who are able to get in early, which is really my biggest fear. Is I'm scared that by the time everyone's bought in on it, it's expensive, and now it's just you get to own a small fraction of a Bitcoin.
And the big players have the majority, right?
So the question is, will the powers that be get in before the rest of the masses do, which is the race that we're seeing right now. And with Wall Street now getting involved, my fear is that the masses aren't. Because now with FTX and Celsius, a lot of normal people are going to be like, screw it, never touching crypto again.
So now what are you doing here with this to, I guess, level that out, right? Or
so to the best of my ability, right, like we try to isolate people like FTX because you can't prevent fraud, right? No one could have. There are people who said, you know, we saw FTX, we thought it was sketchy. Like I said earlier, I saw their aggressive practices a year ago, maybe even longer, which weren't that different than how Wall Street operates. In fact, a lot of what their company did is not that different, as we know, the way a lot of American companies function or international companies function. But you have to isolate the fraud and say this is not representative of crypto. This is not representative of Web3. Sam Bankman-Fried does not represent my industry. He's a bad player who is used for money laundering. That happens with everything. That happens with biotech. That happens with oil, right? It happens with literally any industry that's willing to do it. So I think a lot of people understand that. They're scared of what retail and the consumer will think. But retail and consumer aren't focused on FTX failing. They're focused on who benefited from this money laundering. Right. So that's what's interesting about this FTX stuff is retail and any anti-crypto Web3 narrative really is very overplayed. And it just makes people hate our political class even more because it's been so closely tied to that. So anytime you see FTX, someone who is invested in it doesn't go, man, I hate crypto, screw Bitcoin. They go, yeah, I got rugged by a guy who was teaming up with Congress and who donated to political campaigns.
Yeah, but everybody that sees the 7 or 8 or 9 or however many people there are now that donated to the Democrats, filed bankruptcy, they're forget Bitcoin. I want nothing to do with it. Blah 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 blah. Whether it's left and right.
Correct. And to some extent, like there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the hard part about any dream or any technology that you think about is human nature is human nature.
Right. It like, to me, it's not odd. Like, to me, to think that politically, you know, they're not going to jump in and do this. I mean, the writing's on the wall. Of course they are.
Yeah.
You know, so this, for me, I'm not a fan of the crypto thing. I just can't. I'm old school, you know what I mean? But I respect it, and, you know, I hope it does do well, and, you know, and one day I break. But I think it's cool. I just, you know, at this point, I don't trust it. But I think that the basis of it's great. But when this shit happens, I think that people need to realize that no matter what it is, it's going to happen. Like you've said many times, fraud is going to happen in anything. And with political shit, They got tons and tons of money, and if they can find another route to route money to win, they're going to do it. And that could be a Bitcoin, that could be an NFT, that could be a block of gold. It doesn't really matter. So to think that because all these people went bankrupt, because they gave money to the Democrats on this round, maybe the next round it's money to the Republicans. They're all fucking dirty. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean it's going to happen with everything else. That should be expected, I would think.
Human nature is funny. I mean, even when we're talking about like the unbanked or underbanked or people who hate Wall Street and hate the way money works, and they go, we should be given the same opportunities. And then they get that chance or what they view as the same opportunity, and then they get scammed, right? Because they weren't smart with their own money. So then they call for regulation, right? And what a lot of people forget is that they think, who put these regulations here that bar me from doing what I want to do? Well, your dad did, or your grandfather did, right?
Because the guy who wanted to kept it hidden under the covers and everything.
Correct. Or the guy who got rugged because he made the wrong investment and now he's bitter.
But prior to making the wrong decision, he wanted it quiet, kept it low. Now he got scammed. Now he's crying wolf.
Correct.
So if you're going to dive into this shit, don't cry wolf when you get burned because you made a mistake or there was a glitch.
Correct. So the common complaint is, the average American should be allowed to invest in companies or invest in projects. You shouldn't have accredited investor status to be able to get to certain opportunities, right? But then when you give the average person that opportunity, you get scammers who are able to trick them and stuff like that. And then they're like, man, and then they're like, whoa, I'm just an average person. How am I going to know? Well, you use that and said, well, I'm an average person. I should be able to invest. So neither is right or wrong, but it's just this push and pull between regulation. So the cryptocurrency and digital assets will be the exact same. And people will feel scammed and rugged, and they would say, I would like for government to regulate this a little bit. And then government's going to regulate it to where when they want to get in, they're going to be like, what do you mean I have to go through this entire process to get in, right? What do you mean I'm not qualified to buy Bitcoin now? I have to buy Bitcoin through an exchange or a bank. I can't just buy it on my own, right? And then they're like, oh, but at least it's safe, right? There's FDIC insurance, right? Or something like that, right? I mean, FTX or Celsius said, be your own bank. But that be your own bank didn't have FDIC insurance, right? When I get card swiped at a gas station, I can call Bank of America and I get my magic dollar right back, right? That's happened to me. I've had hundreds of dollars stolen, and you just watch it on your phone, 100, 100. You're like, oh, shit. And you call Bank of America, and then they're like, oh, we'll just put it back.
American Express is the best.
They're real good, aren't they? I've heard that before.
Jeez, you could spend $50,000 and be like, look, I didn't do it. Okay, no problem. We'll put it back.
Yep.
In 2 seconds, it's back.
Bitcoin.
But that's because they're charging every guy that swipes that card, every company that's swiping that, 6.7%. Everybody else is 3.9%.
Bitcoin, if someone steals that, you're not getting that back. No. Right? So no one can steal it from you if you're smart. But if someone does do it, you ain't getting it back. Right?
So in a dream world, how would Bitcoin be? Would it be regulated? Would the government be involved? Right now, if you had full control and you can make any decision you want.
In my dream world, Bitcoin is just going to be a parallel system.
So just like an alternative to what we have.
Correct. I'm
without
not one
all
of these,
the bullshit.
No, and what's hard, once again, going back to the cult of Bitcoin and stuff, which is great. Like, I want a strong dollar. I want the American dollar to be a great currency. I'm an American. I live here. I don't want the American dollar to fail. What sucks for me as an American is that the power that the American dollar has actually been used to hurt my interests as an American. My wealth has been inflated away. It's been used to fund wars that I don't want to fund. It's been used to coerce people to make bad decisions that I don't want them to make. It's been used to overthrow government. That sucks. But I also don't hate the idea of America having the strongest currency in the world. I don't hate the idea of being the world's reserve currency if it means my future children are safer here, right? Like at the end of the day, I live in America. I want a strong America. I want a strong American currency. I'm not a global citizen, right? I live in Florida, right? Like I don't plan on moving out of Florida anytime soon. So America is built, and America's wealth and America's success is in large part due to us being the world reserve currency. We don't understand what that luxury looks like, but it affects every aspect of our lives. I'm not rooting for that downfall because it means my grandchildren might have a lower standard of life than I do. I'm already statistically supposed to have a lower standard of living than my parents, right, on average. That's not cool. That's not great, right? Now, hopefully, if the U.S. dollar fails, Bitcoin becomes this global reserve currency. Maybe it allows us to restart without collapsing. Maybe for a period of time we switch and use Bitcoin as a base, right? Because we've totally forgotten how to even touch gold, right? But we use Bitcoin and then we go back to some kind of dollar that's maybe based on something.
Well, if we keep printing it, we're going to have to.
Correct. I mean, it can only last so long, right?
You can't print this kind of money for
forever.
I mean, this is insane, the amount. I think we just printed another 10 trillion.
Yeah,
I think last week, and we gave, what, 500 billion, I think, to Ukraine, or in the hundreds of billions.
Correct. I mean,
I'm with you on all that.
Once again, like, I don't want billions of dollars to go to Ukraine for money laundering operations, but I don't think people understand how bad the U.S. dollar failing is going to be on not just society, but the world. Like, I was reading it the other day, this article that just blew my mind about how the global system is so intertwined with the U.S. dollar that certain countries specialize in certain aspects of trading that dollar. France has a function in this, Japan has a function in this, England has a function in this, South Africa has a function in this, all part of the global reserve dollar system, which means that if they pull out, their economy tanks, which means they can either pull out now and totally obliterate their country, or they just have to ride the ride with the rest of us, and we're all going down together. And that includes Russia, it includes Iran, it includes China. Everybody's going down, and that's a scary thought. And so the question is, does Bitcoin have the capacity to pick us right back up and save us from that kind of global fallout? It might. That's the hope of a lot of these people with adoption. But once again, national currencies aren't going away. They might have a different peg. Hell, maybe they're pegged to Bitcoin as opposed to gold, or maybe there's some derivative.
Yeah, some type of alternative, but...
Right. I do not wish for that doomsday scenario in my lifetime because it's not going to be great.
No.
Right? People are like, well, I hear this all the time. When Bitcoin's $1 million, we're good. Right? Like, yeah, Bitcoin might be $1 million, but also a bag of bread might be $1 million.
Yeah, right.
Like, and what do you do when you go, man, look at all this Bitcoin I have, but I don't have access to beef or meat, or like food, right? You can't eat Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
That's how you can't eat dollars or gold.
Can't even touch the shit.
Correct. So, that's, the stuff that keeps me up at night is whatever that transition period looks like. Right? Because we're going through that right now. And who knows? You can never predict the future. It always goes some way that you're not predicting, right? This dollar stuff, people have been saying it couldn't work since the 90s. Here we are, still. In fact, it's more entrenched than it's ever been. Who knows where we'll be 20 years from now? I don't know.
Did you see that article, Caltic? I can never say it right. Pull up tab 9. Did you see that? It's called Caltic Maloo. I can never say it right.
Caltic Maloo. I don't think so. I've never heard of that.
Somebody sent it to me. I don't. There's rational.
Caltic Maloo.
Yeah.
Caltic Maloo.
Is that how I say it?
That's how I say it.
Do you know anything about this?
So I think I got sent by this by a buddy a long time ago. Cultic Maloo refers to a new religious movement. It does not refer to ideology of abusive communities. So what he's essentially saying is, I think I talked to you about the circle and the periphery.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of thinking of left and right, which is what we all think. You think the Democrats are left, you think the Republicans are right. You have to think of center and periphery. I can never say that word. So the center is just simply ideas that are accepted. And the periphery is everything that's not. But it's a circle. So you can be way out here, you can be way out here, you can be completely opposites on opposite sides of the circle, but everyone outside that circle is in the periphery, and their ideology, no matter what it is not accepted. But if you're in the center, you're good, right? And that's what matters. So cultic milieu is essentially, I hope I'm saying that right, essentially everything on that outside, right, is this culture of mistrust in the media, in the establishment, in Congress, and the authorities that be, and how those cultures, communities share information. It's where QAnon touches the social communists, touches the vegans, touches the carnivores, touches the Bitcoin people, how they all have their own little silos of fundamentalism.
Aren't we kind of seeing that now?
Yes.
I mean, he's right.
He's absolutely right. And he talks about how everyone in that outside circle essentially is forming this kind of new culture and this new society. And the question is, will that overtake the current strain of thought, and what does that look like?
This.
Yeah, I guess
definitely the beginning.
I mean, what did I read a while ago? It was talking about the alliance of super waspy liberal California moms and these right-wing bodybuilders who are both looking at research on the internet, coming to the same conclusion that seed oils are bad. They're poisoning the food. They're poisoning the water. So you get this girl who hates big pharma, so she votes for the Democratic Socialist, thinking that they're poisoning our water. And then you get this right-wing bodybuilder who's jacked up on steroids, who's agreeing with everything she's saying, but then so he's voting for the Republican who's saying, I hate these, giant big pharma companies or whatever. So it's funny because the circle and periphery theory is just like the horseshoe theory, where you go so far left you start turning around and you go right. But it's such a better analogy because you can be anywhere on that circle, but as long as you're not in acceptable thought, right, you're on a camp together. That's why that crazy guy, Steve Bannon, right, back in 2015 or 2016, who was a huge Trump advocate and populist, was often always trying to get in touch with people in the Bernie Sanders camp, right? And he used to always say, I love the Bernie people, right? Because he kind of recognized that idea. He said, well, we're all outsiders, right? So it doesn't matter that we believe in completely different things, but we're both outsiders. People like Saul Alinsky would say that all the time.
Bernie's the smartest of them all.
Because he's got 7 houses now.
Every 4 years, he just runs. How much are you going to give me to step out? Because I'm going to take your votes, Democrats.
Yep.
How much this year?
I know.
40. Last year was 40 million. Nope. I want 60.
I know.
How much do you think that fucker's gotten paid?
Well,
how many has he gotten in the way of? What, 3?
Yeah.
Definitely 100. Probably $250 million, right? What do you think, Rob? What do you think they paid him?
A lot.
How much do you think?
50 million.
No, more than that, right? To make him drop, he could play hardball. He runs, he takes a lot of their votes, but they'll just cheat more.
That's apparently why Elizabeth Warren is so powerful in Congress, because she dropped out, giving Joe Biden enough votes to win those primaries. And that was the whole reason she dropped out in certain states and other players didn't, right? And now that's why Elizabeth Warren has a lot of sway. Supposedly she did have a lot of sway in Congress. Obviously the midterms will change that. But that was because whatever favor she worked out. And that's really sometimes what running for president's about, is if you can be annoying enough to buy yourself favors when you get whatever position that's in. Or you get a gig on Fox News or CNN and they pay you handsomely.
Or you just get everybody looking at mail-in votes and box number, 3 or 7 in Arizona. And then everybody's looking at box 7, or it was box 3. Did you see that?
No, I haven't. The Arizona stuff I've completely...
So what they did was, in Arizona, there was a box 3 that appeared toward the end when it was close. The inspector couldn't get into it. Nobody could get into it. Finally, when they went to go count, they counted, they realized that there was over 200 ballots in that box prior to it being put in there. Then YouTube, owned by Google, puts out this lady testifying in front of Congress, one of the inspectors, that they could not get into the box 3. They couldn't get into it. Nobody could until the very end of the count, and then that there was ballots in there. Now, Google owns YouTube, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Pfizer's behind that. Gates is behind that. The reason why they put that out is so that in 2024, you look for box 3 again. You look at the mail-ins, and they just go another method to cheat and win again.
So they capture your focus.
Of course. Why would Google put that out? Google is owned by Pfizer and Bill Gates. They run shit. They're a Democrat. They want their green bullshit and all that, everything else. So they're going to put out what they want you to see to distract you. So now you're going to look for box 3, box whatever, a box that shouldn't be there. You're going to look for people to mail in shit after 2,000 mules. Why would they let that out? Yeah, Satoshi had to do it on his, whatever his name is. He had to do it on the Twitter, but it's still there. They could have shut him down all the way. They could have booted him off of Twitter, especially being the fact that Fauci's daughter works for Twitter.
Does she really?
She does.
No
Nicole
way.
does. Yes, she does. So she has the say to, or not. But they didn't. They let him.
Still there?
I don't know if Elon kicked her yet,
Yeah.
but I'm sure he will at some point. Or maybe
That
we'll
would
give
be
her
an
a shot.
interesting sign.
So
Man,
They
to
let
be
that
in
out.
those circles.
So now everybody looks at this, and meanwhile they're coming with another 80 million this way. So my question for you is 2 things. One, I want to hear from you. Can Trump run if he's indicted? If they come out down with a full indictment, we looked it up. Who the fuck knows? Can he run indicted for president? If he's under indictment, indictment's down, United States of America versus Donald Trump. Can he run?
Technically, I have no clue, but I can tell you if he gets indicted, he's going to run even harder, right? Right? That's the answer. If you're a criminal, run for office, as I said before. So all the more incentive to run. I think he knows that's coming, which is why he's going to run. I think he feels personally cheated, which is why he's going to run. He's got more skin in the game than anyone out there to
Now,
run.
can he be president under indictment?
I'm sure he can.
Really?
Why not?
I just didn't think somebody who's indicted, federally indicted, could run for president.
Remember, it said that
I know it said
you
it, but
can be behind a bar.
yeah, it said you
prison
could be
and be
in prison and
president.
be president.
Yeah, I mean, it's the will of the people.
It's pretty fucking crazy, though.
I mean, we could elect a horse,
Hmm.
right?
Or-
I mean, does it even say you have to be a human?
Hmm.
Who knows? Probably not.
I mean, democracy, democratic republics, whatever you want to call us, are funny. I mean, you fit into a guideline, but if you believe the electorate's smart, which the founders was their whole goal, is a smart electorate, then it's the will of the people. And whoever the people choose is the smart guy, if that's your
So
belief.
Technically, he could run the country from jail.
No, you just wouldn't be in jail. You'd get out of jail. Get out of jail free. Your house
Oh.
is the White House.
So if you're under indictment and they sentence you to 10 years, but you win the White House, you're out.
Sure, yeah, why not?
Shit.
Some people would argue that you can be in your basement and serve in the White House.
Yeah. Well,
Some people would argue that.
Seems as such.
Don't want to get killed after I walk out of that
Don't worry. If we're still alive right now,
That's
you'll
true.
be
I'm
alive on
safe.
this one.
I'm safe. Yeah, that's great.
Now, who do you think the Democrats picked to run?
Yeah, it's a good question because I also am not entirely sure Biden's going to run.
Even if he does, they got to pick somebody else.
Well,
I mean, I don't know if we'll live another 4 years, and I feel
think he
bad
will.
for the guy.
I know.
Now, I mean, it's just sad to watch a guy die in front of your face or just lose it.
I mean, even among the Democrats that I talked to, because, I talk to everybody, no one's excited about Biden, but everyone's also very aware that, Biden's just listening to whoever's over his shoulder. What more could you want than someone who's not independent to just listen to you, right? So
Problem is he can't talk.
it doesn't matter. When was the last, how often is he even talking now? He's not talking that much. right? Like he's just enough to where we see little clips, but I mean, Trump and Obama were talking every day, all the time, constant press releases, constant videos. Obama they called him the first social media president. Trump was like the first meme president who really utilized memes in a way that no president had before. So he was almost like Obama brought us into like the Facebook era, and then Trump brought us into like the Twitter era. Biden doesn't do any of that, right? Biden is silent. How often do you even? Biden's not talking.
You don't know what day it is.
So, I mean, I wouldn't.
World leaders. You know.
What'll probably happen is it all depends on how this recession goes and how that plays out. Because what a bait and switch if you are a Republican spending an entire 2023 attacking Biden for how shitty the economy is, and then they go, "Oh, he's not running," and then the Democratic nominee in the primary goes, "All those problems weren't because of me. I don't like Biden either. Here's what he should have done. You actually should have been more progressive. You should have been more this, that, or the other thing, right?"
I think.
But who knows?
I think they're testing out Michelle Obama.
I've
see her popping up a little bit here.
For the longest
she runs.
time.
Forget it. But does it really matter anyway? Does it really fucking matter? Does it matter?
Yes, I think it does. What's fun about people like Trump and like Bernie and these outsiders, I think Tulsi Gabbard's trying to be an outsider now with some of the moves that she's playing, is it's kind of, I've heard it called like harassment architecture, right? Where the more controlling a system becomes, the more brittle it gets, right? Because you have to consolidate power, you're very stiff, and that means you're easier to break. And so if you find people who are good at just poking that system, whether it's from outside or inside, you can try to break it easier, right? It's like with anything, it's like principles of nature, right? I mean, with more consolidation, like you can't have that forever. And there's always a balance. There's always a balance. Just how Bitcoin brought about possibility to financial freedom. But banks are going to use that technology to create a central bank digital currency that will eliminate freedom entirely. That's the world finding balance, right? So the more authoritarians get, the more radical freedom people will get, so to speak, right? And one never wins out. I mean, communist Russia fell, right? And you can imagine being in Yugoslavia or being in, you know, a communist country in the 1950s or 1960s and saying, wow, this is going to be the rest of my life. And then the 80s happen, and then 89 happens, 91 happens, and you go, holy cow, I'm not in a communist country anymore,
yeah.
Right? Like imagine if you were born in Russia or the Soviet Union in 1950, and so you're 55, 60 years old when it's no longer there. How do you adjust to that,
I don't
right?
know.
So it's all the same, and so we think of things in the U.S. as normal, but we know all the norms are breaking. And the Soviet Union collapsed in like 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was a buildup, but man, how quick did that fall? It's weird how it's not really touched on in history. We know the Berlin Wall falls and Soviet Union collapses, but
well, nowadays they pick and choose.
Correct. Like
it's not real history.
What did that internal process? Like what the hell happened?
How did that happen in 3 years?
Insane.
I don't even think it was 3 years, but yeah.
Insane to think about. The second largest power in the world, I think they had one of the largest populations, largest landmass, and then gone.
What do you think? Pull up the tab with Sam's slides. There's one side I want to hit on. So what do you think with that?
I mean, in regards to what we were talking about how systems change. So the Soviet Union system was brittle, right?
That's right. It was.
It was brittle. So what's that mean?
It was built weak.
Well, it wasn't built weak. It just got weak over time because they consolidated control, right? Which means eventually when control's so consolidated, it's like when you always have to ask an attorney to do something, right? And you literally can't do anything without an attorney, so you're always reliant. But then you expound that. What if the attorney has an attorney, has an attorney, has an attorney? So you can't even make decisions, right? That's bureaucracy. That's control. That's power, right?
That's how it could happen that quick.
And so if that's happening here, what does that mean for us? If we're consolidating, if we're becoming more authoritative, and then you have people poking at that, right, while it's becoming more brittle, what does that look like? I have no clue.
I bet you that's what happened with the Soviet Union. I bet it was like you said, in a different way. Lawyer on top of lawyer on top of lawyer on top of lawyer. And within that, it just got crushed. Because the structure wasn't there, right?
I mean, look, there were revolts in the 50s, people saying, I don't want to be a part of this, and the Russians crushed it. But then late 80s, 90s, they kind of peered their head up and were like, all right, let's try this again. And when nothing really happened, they're like, all right, we're good, right? But that took 50 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Go slide down, like on the webpage. Like go down, just scroll down. It's under the video. Go down, like scroll down. Yeah, scroll down.
Oh,
down.
On the thing.
No, there's another thing. That one right there. Can you copy that or just click on it? There you go.
Free Beacon Democrats meet the FBF parents.
Yeah, can you break this shit down?
I kind of talked about this earlier. So what's a little fishy and weird is, hold on, scroll down. Let me read this. Let me see if it's referring to what I think it's referring to. Yeah, so Bankman's mother, Barbara Fried, tax expert whose scholarship focuses on moral philosophy and questions of distributive justice, was a part of a left-wing super PAC and helped Democrats with funding. And then Joseph Bankman, undergraduate degree at Berkeley and law degree from Yale. Accordingly, he helped Senator Elizabeth Warren write tax legislation, who, by the way, Warren's, of course, very close with Gary Gensler, head of the SEC. So this is kind of tying back to what we were talking about maybe 20 minutes ago, just how Sam was very well connected and that tied up to his parents, right? Which was kind of what the fishy... That's what adds another layer to this story is... You know how we were talking about handlers?
Yeah, let me point out this one part. I mean, I don't know how reputable Reuters is anymore or the Beacon. I just saw this.
Yeah.
So we weren't exactly shocked to read Tuesday's Reuters report indicating that Bankman and Fried appear to have been in on FTX scam. The two purchased, whatever that is, beachfront home in gated community that once home to British colonial fort built in the 1700s to protect against pirates. These warriors for distributive justice now tell the press through an unnamed spokesman, of course, paid for with God knows whose money, that they've been desperately trying to return the deed for their estate. They just can't figure whom to give it to. Noted house flipper Elizabeth Warren smiling somewhere. What the hell is all that?
So when you're talking about handlers, what's interesting is, given his parents' credentials, the question is, what if his parents were just like, hey, Sam, you're going to start this company and this is what you're going to do, right? They're both really intelligent people, obviously. And so some kind of brain couple have, I guess, whatever that child looks like, right? And he's running FTX, which we've already kind of discussed. So obviously they had to have been involved. I believe it was his dad or his mom, maybe the mom since she was a tax attorney, developed FTX's infrastructure, which is like one of those huge graphs that I've talked to you guys about, right?
So that's how he's connected.
Like, that's what's crazy is when he's going into bankruptcy, like each one of those entities is holding certain assets and liabilities, and it's all farmed out through this. This. I mean, holy cow. Like, scroll up and scroll down so people can see like all of it. Now scroll down and get a load of that.
Yeah, so his parents.
Look at those countries: Gibraltar, Cyprus.
I've never even heard of half of them.
Japan, Switzerland, Germany.
Where the hell is an analysis?
Vietnam.
Oh, Singapore.
India, West Realmshires, Inc., Delaware. But look at what's all under the Delaware Corp.
God.
Isn't this insane? How do you even track this? Like, even if you're a genius, this is like one of those pictures that you see all the strings on the wall
Delaware,
and all the pages, and you're like, someone's going crazy.
Isn't that where Biden's at all the time?
Yeah,
Well, he was the senator for Delaware, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Delaware's his home.
And all you see is Delaware.
But Delaware, I mean, Delaware is where all the big corporations are, right? Delaware LLC. So I think that just ties back to, that inner circle, right? And obviously he was a part of it. Lucky him.
Wow, and this guy's going to walk. Look at all these countries, man. Anyone else would be buried. I mean, beyond buried. Nigeria.
And I like to say this is normal, but I don't think this is normal. Like, this is so elite. Like, this is incredible. How do you keep track of that?
Look at this. Island.
Yeah,
Jeez.
BVI, Delaware, BVI, Antigua.
And look at all the umbrellas. Umbrella.
Probably threw some killer parties though, but probably some great parties. This guy.
Yo, but his parties did not have the type of people that you want to hang out with.
Yeah.
Look, 27 locations of affiliates, including UAE, Nigeria, Japan, and Antigua, third-party investors. I mean, this is a mess. And this is in like 2 years.
The guy who handled the Enron scandal is handling this now.
Oh boy.
And he's like, this is the most complicated bankruptcy in the history of the U.S.
And for him to say that, it's
Correct.
some serious shit.
Correct. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, that's nuts.
That other article that is that Beacon thing pretty reputable?
I have no clue.
Well, if it is,
I mean, what
hell
it's
of a lot
talking
of
about,
sense with this.
obviously it has a bias. It's nowhere near as good as what I've seen on Twitter. So all my information I've got is from these weird Twitter accounts, like the funny one that you guys had, the Autism Capital.
Yeah, go back to that, Rob.
I love
It's on the
Twitter.
slides right there.
When you scroll down, scroll up. This one. So this Twitter account,
Click on show this thread. See if it will take you there.
it's
Or maybe
just-
click right there.
it's very ironic that one of the most reliable sources for this FTX drama has been from an account called Autism Capital. Like, what world do I live in that this is the source?
Isn't that kind of sick?
It's terrible, but look, go click on it. Look at how many followers it has. Not the video. The video is pointless.
182,000.
Yep, and they've got a Discord. Please be patient. We have autism. It's terrible. But what's crazy? He's right. The real winner is this. This are all the lawyers. So they were documenting the FTX thing pretty well, and they were kind of doing it through open source information. So they were just having people comment and saying, "What do you know?" and then compiling that into Twitter threads. And so all this stuff on his parents was like coming from this account. And I was reading entire threads. I was trying to find them for you, but it was just, there's too much information out there now. More than any article I've ever read. I mean, we're talking about threads that are like 20 tweets long about the involvement of his parents and their ties, and just deep dives.
Wow.
From a Twitter account with that name, right? But better than any article. But the problem is I can't Google that, right? I can't Google thread on, you have to essentially scroll through and find it. And so that article, the Beacon article, was nowhere near the source that Twitter accounts like this were.
So it almost sounds like his own parents put him up to it, and then he's going to take the hit for it. If there is a hit, which I don't think there will be, but the possibility of one. That's what it looks like.
And if his parents put him up to it, that makes me think that he's not going to take the heat. It's got to be some middle management. It's got to be, because he was the founder, but there was a CEO, COO. They got to lick somebody, right? And he's the face and he's the head, but I don't know, yet to be seen. We got to check out the news cycle. Americans have a memory that spans about 2 to 3 months. Right, which is why during any election, all that matters is the 2 to 3 months before, really.
Yeah.
All the scandals, the economy. Listen, if gas prices drop right before, 2 months before the election, and people are like, oh, well, it's not as bad. If the economy's doing just okay enough,
You know what I think will happen? I think some craziness will just suddenly appear to divert because they were all involved, and this will be forgotten about, brushed under the rug. Like you said, 3 months. In 3 months, the gas will be up another $1. Milk will be $15. Everything will be crazy. another hurricane, another fucking whatever, and this will be all forgotten about, and that will be that. That's what I think.
The only thing to watch out for is the externalities, right? So fallouts like this create externalities that government, planners, whoever are never prepared for. And so that's what's always interesting to watch. It's kind of like, like how we funded the Mujahideen to fight Russia and Afghanistan, right. And then they're the guys we're fighting. That's an externality, right? We gave them all the greatest weapons and taught them how to fight a superpower that then they could fight us no problem.
Right.
So what are the externalities from this? I don't know yet.
Well, what I would say it is that other people with the same ability see that this can be done, and they're like, oh, so this can be done. Well, how can I do it better?
That's hard, though, because this can be done if you have political backing. So, yeah, it can be done, but do you have or can this only be done once and now the next money laundering scheme? I mean, for campaign finance, the big thing was book deals. Everything moved into book deals. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
So how publishers would buy 1 billion books from this author who's running for office. Yeah. And then it's an Amazon bestseller because the publisher bought all the books.
Then everybody reads it.
Well, correct. Yeah. So that wasn't done. So books. Yeah. They found out a way to turn books into campaign finance.
That's why I said earlier. Right. Does it really matter who runs?
Correct.
At this point in the U.S., does it really matter? In my opinion, no. Now, no.
It matters if you're connected to them and if they're your buddy. So
well, no, I mean what I'm saying is like does it matter this is what I think. I think it matters that you stay voting, even though I don't think it matters right now. I don't think it matters if I vote or you vote. I think that they're going to have another way in 24 to go like they just did with the red wave was supposed to be the red wave. It still was a red wave, but they played it. They're going to play something again in 2024, in my opinion. But sooner or later, they'll be caught in some way, shape, or form, and your vote will matter. So my fear is that people stop voting because of all the bullshit, and then you don't have people voting because they're like, well, what's the point? But I do think in 24, I just think the same thing happens again. I don't see how you can beat them.
Well, and regardless of, what's fair and what's not fair and what's happening with what people think about elections, I mean, a lot of people have already given up with voting long time ago, before even 2016, 2012. Yeah. Even still, like this election, I don't think more than 30% of Americans have ever voted, right? It's always like 30, 33. It's not even 50%. It's not even 50%, right, who vote ever, right? So, and that's just been normal. I was reading an article on that. I forget what it was correlating it to. I think it was actually talking about how the more accessible we made voting, the less people voted as a percentage of the population, which was interesting and kind of makes no sense, right? You're allowing more people to vote, but the percentage of overall voting is going down. But yeah, the trend of people to vote has only gotten worse over time, right? So I don't know. I don't know if this mistrust in our electoral process is really going to change those numbers. Because sometimes you can make people angry, and now they're like, well, now, I want to show them who's boss. Now I am going to vote, right? Sometimes voting is based off winning. So when you vote and your guy gets elected, psychologically, you're like, I'm going to vote again because my vote actually mattered. But when he loses, then you're like, man, I guess my vote doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with you.
So self-fulfilling prophecy, or you win more. It's tough. I don't know.
Were you going to say something, Rob?
Yeah, who do you think runs? Never said. Who versus who?
Oh, on the Democratic side?
I think you'll have Trump. I think you'll have Cruz again. I think you'll have
Governor Abbott in Texas is prepping.
Maybe Abbott. I think you'll have the Arizona. What was her name?
Carrie Lake.
Carrie Lake.
You think she'll run for president?
Yeah, I think she's going to run. On the Democratic side,
will anyone primary? No one's gonna primary Biden unfriendly. Biden would have to step down.
Yeah,
to be
if he doesn't run.
If he doesn't run,
Bernie
Well, I mean, Bernie's definitely going to run.
Warren will run. Booker will run. Kamala.
I got the longest shot.
I think Michelle. I think Michelle Obama. If Trump runs, and it's Trump versus Biden, and they have an inkling that there might be too much Trump power.
No, Clinton
maybe
would run
Michelle.
again. Hillary would run again.
I think they tested her out and they realized that that's not a good idea.
What about the darkest of dark horses that I thought about during this conversation, actually, when you guys are talking about
who could that possibly be?
the darkest, and this is, you heard it here first, the darkest of darkest horses.
Okay, let's bet on this. Man's bet. Who do you
All
think
right,
he's
I'll
talking about?
give you some clues.
Just one hint.
It's a male.
Don't give
It's
it
a
away.
white male.
White male.
Pretty young. I don't think he's old, but he's not. He's not 30.
Bill Gates.
No.
Okay, that would have been my guess. Fuck.
He's a name that
I
a
get two
lot of
shots.
people know. A lot of people. He's like a Trump. They know him. They know him. Celebrity style.
You
Oh,
guess
you're
first.
not going one of the Paul boys?
No.
Is that your guess?
I'm not going on those crazy.
Is that your guess? I guess
No.
when I was wrong.
No, that was
He's
not
some
my
guy that has been involved in politics recently, for the people, standing up, helping people.
Not John Morgan.
No.
Everyone thought he was going to run for governor here.
Hold on. I get 20 seconds
Go
here to
ahead.
think.
I gave you a lot of clues here. I thought about it during this
okay.
conversation.
Right
I was thinking
now.
about
A
different
young
people.
guy?
Yeah, when I say young, he's
Not Elon Musk.
in his 50s, I think. I don't think he's 60s.
young. You
When I
say
say young,
young
well,
in
you're looking at
50s.
like Biden and Trump, who are like, in their 80s. But
We're in God's waiting room.
Yeah.
Not Trump, though. He seems fine. We're on some good shit. Wanted
what do
to.
you think?
Uh,
I know. I threw it here.
Pence?
No.
Pence
I
is
think he's gonna run.
He is going to run.
Just turn that knife a little bit more into
I'll
Trump.
just tell you.
Hey, jerk off. Who?
John Stewart.
Oh, Jon Stewart.
Maybe he's a meme, but that guy's such a...
The only reason why I think that
Oh, yeah. He
That-
did
That's like
that.
saying Tucker Carlson will run, which is a real possibility, but
But I think I thought about it. Like,
He's
so
been making waves.
they've
Stewart.
been putting him, with the whole New
Yeah.
York fire or the 9/11 thing, how he fought for the people and they got whatever, put the money in there.
Yeah.
Like, that's like one of those, I think they were testing the waters with him, seeing how do people react to him? Can we pull this? Can we pull that? I'm not saying that's going to be the guy. I'm just
that's like if Oprah were to run.
yeah.
She probably would win.
I mean, you have talking heads are interesting
Yeah.
because in a sense, Trump kind of laid the framework for that. He was a media personality, so now Carrie Lake would have been the same
Yeah.
media talking head. So I wouldn't be surprised if more media people used that power, but they have to be relevant. In my opinion, Jon Stewart's not relevant. Look at his ratings. Like, he's old news. My generation barely knows who Jon
Doesn't know
Stewart
who it
is.
is.
Like, not that my generation votes, but that just means he's not in pop culture right now.
I could see him running, though. He's getting pretty deep into it. Have you heard him lately? He's been making
No,
headlines.
like I said, no.
Yeah, he's
Where?
making
Like,
New
I
York
haven't
Post.
seen this guy. Whatever avenues he's on, it's completely separate than anything people in my generation are looking at.
I don't think that's out of this world.
I just think I was just
not to
thinking
win,
about,
but
I'm not saying that that's going to be the guy, but you think about, you had the Arnold Schwarzeneggers of the world, you had Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah,
You had
remember
these
that?
guys that
Yeah.
are like Jesse the Body Ventura. I mean, but
I think it'll probably be what you had said. I think it'll probably be Trump and Biden, and Biden will probably win again.
I've said
I
it
mean,
before. I want some younger dudes, man.
Other than
can't.
that, I would say Michelle.
Give me somebody younger.
If Michelle Obama runs, it's over.
Give me somebody
it's
that has
game
military
over.
service and is in their 50s. That's what I want.
Yeah,
That's what I'm going for. Served in the military and you're in your 50s.
but who the hell wants that job?
No.
You're gonna go in the military. Like, say you're like a Navy SEAL, went through all that shit, got drowned, suffocated. Now you're gonna go and be the president and get tortured for 4 years.
There's a good guy.
That's
Have your reputation
have
as
your
a Navy SEAL hero just
Yeah.
There's
killed.
a good guy that was in the Navy. I think he went to Yale. He might be in the governor of Florida right now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then they
Just throwing it out there.
yeah, and then that guy, pulled a shot and hit a fucking, car in Afghanistan while, machine gun bullets were coming at him and, I don't know, blew up a building and now that's out that he tried,
They'll find his Google search.
Yeah.
Oh, you were watching porn when you were 16 years old.
So what happens in 2024? What's your prediction?
As far as what?
Who wins?
I have no idea.
You got to. That's what a prediction is.
I
It's a
hate
prediction.
predictions. I can't even predict what's going to happen 2 months from now.
Do you think Biden runs again?
If things are very bad in 2023, I can see him stepping down and saying, I'm just going to be a one-term president.
Okay, and then who runs in place of him?
It would be Kamala.
Ooh,
Because the important...
they better have a lot. They better have one hell of a strategy on that one.
Why are people like Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi so powerful and in power? Because power begets power, relationships beget relationships. So even if Kamala is awful, doesn't do anything, whatever negative opinion you have of her or positive opinion you have of her, all that matters is she's going to have been vice president for 4 years. That's 4 years of contacts. That's 4 years of power plays. That's 4 years of buying off favors. That's why Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were so powerful,
But
right?
at least Hillary Clinton can say a sentence. This woman doesn't even. I mean, she's terrible.
Biden's not a good talker and he's president.
Yeah, they just want a puppet.
Kamala's better at talking than Biden. So if we're talking about upgrades, and then the only problem is Kamala's tied to Biden, so she'd be running on his track record, which might not be good. Although she could say, it's a new face, new administration, we're doing things differently.
Yeah, 7 months before election, she separates herself.
Correct.
Goes against them.
But that's only if things go bad. I mean, for all I know, Kamala's president right now, if she's Biden's handler, which is okay, maybe she's getting the dream that she's wanting right now, staying out of the limelight but having control. Who knows? I think it all just depends on how bad things are in 2023. But I don't know, the world's a complicated place. I can't predict how people are going to react. Like, if the recession continues to get worse, if oil gets super expensive, we're just at the precipice of, I think, these mass layoffs and stuff like that. Maybe they just keep buying favors while the dollar's still relevant. You have a debt jubilee. You pay off college. Maybe you start forgiving more loans. Maybe you start forgiving bank loans. I mean, if we're going to decide money printing's the way to go, I mean, just keep people happy. Increase food stamps, raise those limits, give more handouts.
Scary.
And you don't even have to raise taxes to do it, right?
Yeah.
You just print the money, right? And once again, if you're an American politician the rest of the world's going down with me, what do I have to lose? Might as well keep my power, right?
True.
So seriously, you think about just selfish incentives, and that's for anybody in those positions of power. That's what I'd do. I mean, it's just interesting, the dynamics of figuring it out. But I don't know, because the last couple of years, pretty much every prediction I've had has been pretty not great, right? I mean, because once again, it's figuring out what's my gut telling me, right? And it's hard to tell what's actually my gut and what I'm trying to. So I never try to overthink it too much.
Yeah.
Normally, the simplest thing is the simplest thing, right?
If your gut told you versus what could happen, give two scenarios. Who do you think? What's the
Well,
this,
one, I think
this
it'll
person
just be
versus
simple.
This person.
I think it'll just be Trump and Biden,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's what your gut tells you.
Yeah, I don't think much will change. We'll have a build up for that. It'll be a rematch. And if it's not Biden, I think it'll be Hillary. And I think Hillary wants to run again. I think she feels cheated, blindsided. She wants her name on that list of presidents. It's not enough to be a senator. It's not enough to be a loser. She wants a rematch. And now that the fix is in, she'll know she can win. And so I don't see why she wouldn't. They still have, they're old, they're dying, but they still have the contacts. They still have the political pool. She's on Twitter roasting all the time.
So does your gut say Hillary Trump or Biden Trump?
Pretty equally both.
What do you think? Who do you think the two will be?
My Jon Stewart one's fun, but no. I would like to see, I think DeSantis for me. I think the Democrats are going to push heavily for the guy from California, Newsom.
I could see that.
I think they're going to push him heavy. And, I mean, I can't see him winning, but who knows? I mean, who the hell knows?
Well, he was personally attacking DeSantis a lot, which was kind of a hint that is why the California governor.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like a, hey, we have our own bright young guy who can take on.
Fuck, he runs, I'm moving. We'll do the podcast from the DR. We're gonna get a nice spot there for $25,000.
Who,
if Newsom's in? Jeez. Can you imagine him running, being president?
California's an interesting
Oh my
place.
God. Yeah, talk to some people that are in LA right now.
Is it pretty bad?
It's horrible. Horrible.
Crime?
Just the whole mask shit.
Still?
Still regulations. Yeah, I had watched them years ago, but this guy, Weston Boucher, he came in and he would go to LA all the time. He does like modeling for Rolls Royce Men's Health. He won't even go to LA. He moved to San Diego. It's so bad.
I've heard that. I've heard San Diego's actually awesome.
Yeah, out there. He said it's a whole. It's like you're in Texas, pretty much.
I hear that all the people are like, California sucks. San Diego's cool. It's not like the rest. I'm like,
Yeah, no, I flew him in. He flew from San Diego to here, and I said, San Diego? I thought you were in L.A. He goes, no, it's horrible. It's nuts. He's like, San Diego's like Texas. The rest of California is like it was 2 years ago. He was exaggerating, kind of joking, but it's still bad. So, last question. Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
I'm not even watching it.
Just pick a fucking team.
Tampa Bay, baby. Tom Brady, bring it back. I know you're going through a divorce.
You can't pick the
FTX,
Eagles.
But
it's the Eagles.
Man, I feel so bad. He stays another season. He's great for Tampa, but with FTX and with his playing and now divorce, I feel for that, man.
Bad year.
I feel for those kids. I feel so bad, but
get him a fucking line. If he gets a good line again, he needs a better line.
And
he's old.
The Heat Arena still does not have a name now because it was the FTX Arena.
Are you serious? Was it? Oh,
yeah,
wow, I didn't even
FTX.
realize that.
Yeah, the naming right. Yeah.
So now,
that face describes it all.
There was a
wow, that's big.
$30,000 bid or $30,000. Listen to me, $30 million bid for naming rights. Somebody put up $30 million.
Yeah,
they haven't picked the name yet, but bangbros.com put up $30 million.
That's the porn.
The
website.
porn.
The porn
website. Name it the BBC Arena.
Oh my god, that would be
$30 million. They said we'll pay $30 million.
That's real.
They did. They put up $30 million.
Show him.
It's not.
Before we let him out, before we let him out of the handcuffs.
Yeah, hey, before you leave, we're gonna make you look at this, or watch this.
And you know what? If it was that, they would probably be sold out for a year just because of the fucking name.
And
I was wrong. No, I'm not wrong on this. They put up $10 million, not $30 million.
Okay, that's still.
Bang Bros bid $10 million for Miami Heat Arena.
And did they really say they were going to name it?
With American Airlines rights set to expire at the end of the year.
Oh my goodness, you're right.
Look at the BBC.
The BBC proposing to rename the arena the BBC. Fans of both the Miami Heat and Bang Bros have taken to Twitter to join on the numerous adult-themed innuendos that could come along with a new name. Reports claim that the world's best porn site has allocated $10 million in hopes of taking over the stadium sponsorship rights. And while many claim the bid might be nothing more than a publicity stunt, the company did take to social media to formally announce their proposal. We have officially submitted $10,000 bid for the naming rights for the Miami Heat Arena.
There's no way the city's going to allow that.
That would be funny as hell, though.
No way.
Well, at least we ended on a laughing joke.
Yeah,
right,
of all the things, I know. I'm glad we
that was a
end
good
on
pull,
that.
Rob. A good pull. All right, Sam, man. Thank you for educating us dummies on all this stuff.
Right.
And I do feel better about the Bitcoin, at least. The rest of the shit, I was right. I wanted to say I was right about everything, but not that.
You were right about 99%. There you go.
But Bitcoin.
Good enough.
And you were right about Bitcoin.
There you go.
Awesome, man. Anytime you come into town, let me know so you can swing in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for always being a friend since day one.
You bet.
Appreciate it, brother.